Okay, ladies and gentlemen, having trouble with Facebook again. What a surprise. See if we can get it going. Just doesn't want to play today. See if we can get it going. It's always for CLO on Facebook, always seems to give us trouble. It's got a tick. Is it going to stay that way? Let's hope for the best. We'll see how we go, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's Good Friday. I don't know how you guys do your Good Friday. If you're offended by what I'm about to say, there's a good chance you may need to be offended, or perhaps you just chose to be. But you know what? I sat down with a big bit of steak and a big thing of bacon because I'm not going to stand at the fish and chip shop for 3 hours to get an overpriced bit of fish that, is deep fried and not really the best quality these days, especially up here in North Queensland. Fish and chips was better in Victoria. I must say it's the one good thing about Victoria was the fish and chips. The old wog fish and chips, you just can't beat it. And there we go. It's not going to play today. What a surprise. Sorry. Let's try a different profile for the Facebook fans out there. Maybe that one will work. I know we've got it available on the North Queensland Freedom Network page. It's not the Cafe Locked Out one. It's just giving us grief. Hopefully the link I've posted there will sort that out. So anyway, where's our comments? G'day, Belinda. How are you? Clark's there. Adrian, how are you? So, that one's giving us grief too. Okay, fair enough. It don't want to play. It is what it is. So, I do have a quick little video here because some people might not be up to date with what's going on. Michael is currently in hospital from, Michael Gray Griffiths, in case you're wondering, for those who don't have the full Cafe Locked-Out spectrum going. He's had some heart complications, and as of a few hours ago, there was a post put up stating that, due to complications, they're going to admit him tomorrow. So everybody want to put out their best wishes for Michael. This is what come up on Facebook. Due to Michael's worsening condition, they will be operating on him tomorrow. We want to thank you all for your prayers and displays of love. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to answer all the incoming messages and calls, so please don't be offended if we don't get back to you personally. We'll keep you up to date via social media on our pages only. So thank you. We love you all, from Callie. So, big, thoughts, prayers. May the force be with you. Whatever tickles your fancy for Michael there. Hopefully he's coming through with a good one. And, let's have some faith. I know it's hard, particularly with the audience that we have, to have faith in the medical institutions these days. But I'd still like to think that most people got into that field with the best intentions, and they've just been crammed into a shitty situation in the past couple of years where they've been forced to do things that some may consider unethical. So, with that out of the way, we might come back to the Michael thing a little bit later. There was something he posted that I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about, but I think we might wait for those audience numbers to come up a little bit. So anyway, without further ado, let's bring in all our plethora of guests we've got today. Just like last week, it was a bit of a smorgasbord of options. And Darren and Darryl are kind enough to do 2 weeks in a row, which is amazing. But today we've got Heidi. G'day, Heidi. How are you?
Hello.
And we've got Jody Lowe for his first time appearance.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got Darren Dixon, Know Your Rights, and Constitution Watch. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks, buddy. And I'd say this, I reckon the fish and chips in Queensland are a lot better.
You reckon? Has the quality in Victoria plummeted?
It has.
Oh,
Very
man.
much
So
so.
all I have are fond memories.
Fish and chips are not what they used to be. Most of them have been sold off, and unfortunately,
Just like so many components
certain
of
things that
Australia.
have come into the mix. But I remember when I had fish and chips and various seafood up in Queensland, it was quite amazing. It was because it was fresh straight off the water.
Yeah. I think it depends on where you're at too, Go to the fish shop by itself, but I don't know, the price of fish and chips have obviously, people are making cost cutting decisions and whatnot. But anyway, let's bring Darryl in. G'day, Darryl. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, good, Betty. And hello to Heidi and Darren and Jody Lowe. And to
Hey, Darryl.
And I must dispute, the best fish and chips are in July.
That's where we went that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good, mate.
Well,
Well, having owned a
what's that
restaurant
place
and
called?
a catering business, the best fish and chips were at my place.
fair
Okay,
enough.
we're all going to Heidi's for dinner.
You could do that.
Jody was telling us earlier that he's become a master chef. Maybe the fish and chips are best at his house.
Mate, we used to get I had a pub up in North Queensland in Ingham for a little while there before I went broke, and we used to get the fish straight out of the top end. And I can tell you that my Kazra's Tavern in Ingham had the best fish and chips that you would have ever eaten. But unfortunately, I didn't have a bankroll big enough to keep going broke for more than 2 years. So yeah, these days I can't afford the quality fish and chips.
Fair enough. We might have to have a big cook-off one day and settle the who does have the best fish and chips. So, alrighty. Well, we should probably start with what Heidi, I guess, was going to bring forth as you kind of instigated this whole podcast this week. So, tell us, what is this amazing gift you have to give, particularly to Queenslanders, and hopefully could be spread around the rest of the country as well?
I'm not sure if it's a gift, but it's definitely an eye-opener, and both Darryl and Darren know about this, in a trial that I was involved in last week, which has been adjourned due to lack of disclosure. I questioned the sergeant in regards to the QP9s that were given, and I asked him why they weren't signed, or why the fact checker didn't sign the QP9s, and that they're a legal document.
So just for those who don't know, what exactly is a QP9?
It's the large brief of evidence. So normally when you go into court, they'll say, how do you plea? And if you say not guilty, they'll give you the evidence, right? The evidence. It is called a brief of evidence, QP9. And
right.
The magistrate actually turned around when I said it wasn't signed, and I said it was a legal document. He turned around and he said, well, no, it's actually just documentary hearsay and police opinion.
So their entire brief of evidence is hearsay.
Documentary hearsay and opinion. When hearsay and opinion is not allowed to be adduced to court. And then it got me thinking, has this evidence ever been filed in court? Because the police walk in, they put a box on the floor. So no evidence is actually filed in the court at all.
Wow. And so the whole how are they able to bring it in and call it evidence then? This is mind-boggling.
How can they call it evidence? And then when they're on oath, they can you can question them and say, in your statement, is it true you said this? And then they can watch the video footage where they didn't say what's in the brief of evidence, and then they're allowed to change what they said while they're on oath.
Wow. Isn't that perjury?
Well, no, because they brought hearsay and opinion.
Punishment.
So, yeah, go on, Darren, you explain it.
Without punishment, because they've sworn under penalty of perjury when they make their statements, the signature at the end. It says straight under the signature, under penalty of perjury. And you can raise this with magistrates, and it's nothing to see here. It's something that happens in the court every day. We don't want to rock the boat. We can't call on the prosecutor to arrest the informant who has perjured himself, because guess what? He's actually not on duty. So that's one thing that people have to realise.
Well, the officers in my case were in uniform, so they were on duty. So when I questioned the magistrate and said, if anyone commits perjury or perverts the course of justice, obviously you're in a position to hold them in contempt of court for that. And he said, well, that'll be up to me. Well, that will just, they won't be a credible witness. And I said, but if it's perjury, they should be charged for it. And he said, I'll be the judge of that.
Oh.
Yeah, the box of information. It's interesting because in a magistrate's court setting, just with summary offences, not indictable but serious offences, but summary offences. So the offences that you and I would go there for. Yep, they walk in with a box, they walk in with a file, and nothing. You're correct. Nothing has been put into the court or on the court record prior to that prosecutor arriving there. Occasionally there are certain things, but usually there's a bit of back and forth between the prosecutor and the magistrate before the matter is heard. That quite often happens.
100%. And then that raises a point. Then if you've got a summary offence, which is a misdemeanor summary offence. But if something's an indictable offence, it has to be committed up to the higher court. So you've got three options for that to happen: a registry committal, where you just let the registrar know that you're willing to take it up, or you can have a committal hearing where you can pick a handful of witnesses within that case and have like a mini trial in the lower court potentially to prove that they'll never be able to prove reasonable doubt against you or beyond the reasonable doubt, and you could literally win at that lower level. Or it gets given to the magistrate, and the magistrate makes the decision. Now, if there's nothing on file in the court, how does the magistrate then peruse the information to turn around and say, yes, I think there's enough evidence that a jury would, not could, shall, or must, would find you guilty if it's not filed in court? And it's hearsay and opinion.
Well, I thought they were supposed to be dealing with the facts, not hearsay and opinion.
No, the courts don't run off facts. Courts run off presumptions. And it's whoever can maintain the biggest presumption at the end of the day wins. It's got nothing to do with fact or truth. It's got to do with presumption. So
even when we got there, and he said, Miss Ward, you haven't been arraigned yet. And I said, that's because I haven't made a plea. And I said, fancy getting all the way to trial and I haven't made a plea. And he said, yes, well, I can see that. And he said, how do you plead? And I said, innocent. And he said, you can't plead innocent. And I said, well, the minute I plead not guilty, I lose my right to innocence. And he said, well, you're only presumed as innocent. Exactly what Darren's saying.
There's the presumption on the table.
Yep.
Okay, they only presume that you're innocent. You're not innocent. There's just a presumption being placed there. And if it's a strict liability offence, well, you're definitely not innocent or not guilty unless you have a reasonable excuse. So it's quite interesting. Like if it's an indictable offence, yeah, sure, things are lodged into the court for the magistrate to look at. But yeah, on these minor offences that we all go to court for, nothing's lodged in the court. Ordinarily, what's happening is the agency's hiring out the courtroom for the day.
Sorry, Darren, there's two indictable offences amongst this. And when I raised under the section that I'm entitled to a jury, under section 552B, he went, oh, no, just brush it off. Even though the legislation clearly provides, he just,
No. So that's the thing. You just need to exercise the right. It's your right to have a jury trial if it's an indictable offence. So, and the difference is with an indictable offence, they have to prove every single element of the case. Whereas if you allow the indictable offence to be heard summarily, that means they just brush over the facts. It's on the balance of probability, most likely.
So the prosecution removed the aggravation attached to it, and I just said you can't hear this in this court. And as much as I have to say he was very, very good, the magistrate, and has been adjourned, and he has allowed me to bring a dismissal order against them, it's just the way the magistrate, it's all hearsay, it's opinion. So as we were speaking privately the other day, Darryl and Darren, what if you walked into court and just said, is there any evidence in this court to prove anything? So a bench sheet's not even further and better particulars. It just says the one so-and-so committed obstruction on so-and-so date. It doesn't actually say what you did on a bench sheet, and a bench sheet can't be found. If you Google Queensland government court forms and go and look for a bench sheet, which is a Form 7, it's not there. Or a Form 5 for traffic offences, it's just not there. So how does the government get to put a court form list together and omit these forms to the general public? I don't think the bench sheet's even filed in the court.
So are you suggesting that perhaps before you even put a plea in, it's a case of asking, is there any evidence before this court for me to even be here?
Yeah,
Well,
the bench sheet is definitely filed into the court because that's how the matter is begun. It's filed into the court, and the registrar accepts it or denies it. So that is actually filed into the court, but that's just the administrative office, the registry. So, you know, and unless there's something specific that they're working on a particular case, then they'll get everything. But ordinarily, with just a summary offence, you can go and sit in the court and you watch. They'll do like over 100 cases in one day in one courtroom. They just push them all through and deny you the right to natural justice.
Star Chamber.
Yeah.
Mm. So if
I can bring you to the case of my friend, of why I'm being sued by the Legal Service Commissioner of the state of Queensland. She was charged with murder, and her case just last Thursday. Very interesting set of circumstances. Got to be careful what I say here, but basically, it was a magistrate who decided that he would commit the matter up, and then the DPP decided there wasn't enough evidence to commit her, but none of her brief of evidence was on file. So how did the magistrate make that decision if it wasn't on court file? Did the police just go, "Hey, buddy, here's a copy of it"? How did he make the decision if the autopsy, all the documents were not on file? How did a magistrate make a decision for committal?
Persona designata.
Correct.
And that means what, for those who don't know?
Judge acting in his private capacity.
Okay, so that sounds more like somebody who's been employed by a company. Even if you're not employed by a company, actually, it's acting in your personal capacity. So you're employed to do your job, and then you go and do something else off the side while acting in that position.
Exactly.
Like me delivering freight, but on the side, I'll use everything that the company's provided, truck, fuel, and all, and do my own delivery on the side.
Yeah, you'll find that when a matter is a quasi-criminal matter, so in other words, just a misdemeanor, like a parking fine or something like that, it's quasi-criminal. Quasi is sort of, but not really, is what that means. So sort of, but not really criminal, but we're going to try it in criminal jurisdiction. And you'll find that most magistrates are sitting persona designata in that capacity, and not in their judicial capacity.
Well, Mark, if you go to that article that we were just talking about prior, in the last 7 months in Mackay, which are the same prosecutions involved in my matter and potentially some of my private prosecutions that I've got going on, if you scroll to that article and go to the very bottom, it actually says in the last 7 months, you might want to read it, that prosecutions have charged people with life sentences, and it hasn't even made it out of the magistrate's court.
So this is the third death-related criminal case in the Gaia region. Crown prosecutors have opted not to proceed with in the past 7 months. A manslaughter case against amateur pilot Peter Thomas McDougall, charged over the death of his passenger when a Christmas Eve joy flight turned to tragedy. The pair had been taking what was intended to be a scenic flight over the islands off the coast of Ball Bay, north of Mackay, when an amateur-built two-seater Jody D-11 light aircraft encountered engine trouble and crash landed on the beach about 7:30 a.m. on December 21st. Mr. McDougall was charged on in March 2023, so it took over a year to charge him. And his case was committed to the Supreme Court in May 2024. Yet over another year has passed. After 6 months in November, the ODPPP decided not to present an indictment, determining it did not have reasonable prospects of success after considering all the admissible evidence. 6 weeks earlier, the ODPP also decided not to pursue an unrelated murder charge against Mackay father Aidan Bradshaw, who spent about 18 months in custody and just under 2 years on strict Supreme Court bail over the death of his 6-month-old son, Beau Bradshaw. Baby Beau was found unresponsive at his East Mackay home on the 2nd of June 2020. 5 years has passed, and died in hospital 2 days later. Mr. Bradshaw was originally committed on a murder charge. However, in late September 2024, the DPP confirmed the case against him had been discontinued after review of admissible evidence, and it was determined the Crown no longer had reasonable prospects of success. This is ridiculous. They spend years and years fucking around people's lives just to go, oh, okay,
Yep.
Apparently we don't have enough evidence. This is absolutely disgusting.
Well, they don't even say they got enough evidence. They wait for the 6 months to run out under Section 590 of the Criminal Code, because after 6 months, they're not allowed to carry on anyway. So in Pete's case, the pilot, he was jailed for seven days with no reason. I tried to put a writ of habeas corpus in. They wouldn't even allow that in the court. Right, he spent $140,000 on solicitors to have that charge dropped, and there's no recourse for him. And Jessica Hambry, which is HZX versus QPS, she was actually sent to jail in between that 3 times. I got her out under a writ of habeas corpus after she spent 40 days in prison, and they rearrested her twice more for talking to Crown witnesses that weren't even on the bloody list. And just the rigmarole to get her bail so she can actually talk to people and everything's just been a nightmare. So it's like it's hearsay and opinion that can change the trajectory of someone's life, family's life, family unit, whatever. And recently in the court with I was in the court with Pete McDougall, and he was raising the fact that he'd spent all of this money, and there was 2 prosecutors laughing at him in the court. And when he finished speaking and it was dismissed, I stood up and I just said to the magistrate, I'm appalled. That prosecutor and that prosecutor over there are sitting in this court laughing, and they had the audacity to come to me outside the court and say, oh, is it illegal to smile in court?
And
don't worry, I have a plan.
And Mark,
Can't
then of
talk
course
about
we
it
have
out loud.
Mark, then of course we have the case of Nick Patterson, who who police ran across a gang of police thugs ran across a Melbourne city street and bashed him and his party, and Nick ended up with a dislocated shoulder, was in jail for around about a month. And once the judge of the county court saw the footage of what they did and how it was inconsistent with all their statements, it was thrown out of court, and he's been trying to get his costs, which amount to about $250,000. And they're saying, "Oh, we don't have to pay your costs. We can accuse you of anything. We can drag you through the courts, and then we can pull out before the trial because we mucked up, and you have to bear your own costs." This is the message that the government is sending. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're.
We can do whatever we like.
I thought it was Australia, and clearly it's no longer Australia, where government can make these accusations against you, and then leave you high and dry after they admit to making a mistake. And it's clear that
Camilla Harris, the Vice President of the United States, she actually, there is a thing of hers, because she was a prosecutor prior. She actually says, my job's so powerful, I can bring a charge on you, I can drag you through the court, and with the stroke of a pen, I can decide no. They know it. They know they can do this. And the only way around it is to privately prosecute the prosecutor. Guess how much, Mark?
$111.70. I believe it was. Catchphrase of the century.
So there has to be some sort of change in the fact that when you go into a civil case, you have to disclose evidence, they have to rebut, you've got to go backwards and forwards. So the problem is when you say you're found innocent or not guilty and you want your costs back, you have to challenge the state. And as Darryl well knows, in my case, you spend the next 2 years fighting the state, then they sit you down at an alternate dispute resolution, ADR, and they say, well, our costs are $300,000 against you. And if you lose, that's what the costs are going to be. And you sit back and you go, looking at the corruption, are they going to let me win?
You know what the interesting thing about that is? There's $300,000 of costs against you. Really? So are you telling me since you've been working on this case that you haven't been getting paid from the government?
Good point.
And you do this, okay, just out of the kindness of your heart, and then once you get someone convicted, you get paid because you get given costs. No, there are no costs. They've got no costs.
That's a great point, yeah.
There's no cost. What there is there's a game that lawyers play now, and government, where anyone that challenges any authority, we're going to take you down, and we're going to steal all of your life savings. And that's
the irony in my case, the magistrate, who could be, look, at all accounts, he has been amazing, but could be the smiling assassin as well. If he's listening, I apologise for that. But he put all this case law in front of me of what had to be, what he had to cover. And the biggest piece of legislation he put in front was Section 634 of the police powers, that they have to do this, they have to do that, and that is a prerequisite must. Otherwise, you can't prosecute. And in my partial trial, I've proven outright that they never established those prerequisites. So why is it then they can just dismiss the case? You then have to start another case in order to get costs and another trial. There should be something that the magistrate should be able to say, well, you've committed perjury, you've committed this is malicious prosecution, and dealt with in one go. 158A, Darryl. Jody, if you don't know, Darryl was my mentor. I knew nothing about anything before I met.
Yeah, I was actually laughing some of the trolls. I haven't seen some of these trolls for a while.
They're quite extensive, actually. I'd just like to thank all the trolls, because we must be doing something really good tonight for them all to come out. Nothing better to do than to harass us.
Is Mr. Sudi there?
There was a special one, South Bay Ray.
So.
He's a mildly handicapped dude that I blocked a couple of years back, and I seen his little thing pop up, and I almost wanted just to say, "Hey, South Bay Ray, I hadn't seen you for a while."
Hey, Ray.
From a numpty like me, what is the chance, right? Because like every time I lift a piece of carpet, there's another fraudulent thing under there, and then I listen to the people like yourselves that know how to navigate these systems, and I think there is no chance that the normal person can do this. So what is the remedy? I mean, what is the way forward? Because I'm very insignificant to the police, to the federal police. I'm just a conduit idiot online, talking, parroting other people's words, so they don't take much notice of me. But I mean, obviously, you guys are deep in the trenches. What is the best path for people like me to to get ourselves into a position of knowledge, because obviously yous have got it and yous are still getting.
But I didn't have it. That's the joke is when Darryl said to me, "You need to do this under 158A, or this is what I would do if I was you." And I said, "What's 158A?" And he said, "It's a section of the law." And I went, "Well, you're pretty smart. How do you remember all those numbers?" And here we are 5-6 years later, and I'm like, section this, section that. When your back's to the wall and you're in the court, you either lose everything you've got to sell everything, or you have to put something between your shoulders and sit up and put an effort in.
That's the nature of the beast, isn't it? We always get help after the fact. We see the marriage counsellor when she's on the way out the door. We see we see the psychologist after we aren't going to work anymore. So it's common. We're common that we wait until we're in trouble before in trouble with the law before we start trying to learn it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to find a way to get.
Well, there's a really good saying, Jody. The opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy themselves, and that's how I've navigated and won all this stuff that I've won. Is when they give, like I said, the magistrate gave me all the court sightings of whether I could or wouldn't, and I've finished all of that today. And he's provided me the law that gets me out of it, whilst providing what could have got me into it.
Yep.
So I had a guy on our people's council come today, and he said, "Oh, you're using the person's name, and I've got out of this 3 times. You wouldn't know what I'm doing." And I said, "Well, you'd be the first person." I've never seen anyone do it. I've been in front of the court, I don't know, what is it, 140 times now?
Yeah, plus and counting.
Well, I have 82 matters in front of the court currently. They're my own folders. That's just what I've got going on, right? So, thanks, Darryl.
Busy.
She's even been done with square dancing in a round room.
And you started this, Darren. Is that what I'm hearing? You started this.
Hey,
Darryl.
Darryl, sorry.
Darryl became a mentor to what he thought he was just helping, well, you could look at this or you could look at that. And then when I found the path and understood how it all worked, and I couldn't find redress. So right now, where it's going in my case, I've contacted the CCC, the Ethical Standards Command. They've done a year's investigation. Oh, no evidence to see here. Well, the court case is looking a little bit different. So every single individual involved in it, they're all liable. And guess what? It's $111.07 to make sure that they bloody are.
Now, I seem to remember something being said in an article recently about judges somehow getting immunity from being prosecuted privately. Did I read that correctly? Anybody else heard that?
Yes, that's correct.
Go, Darren, you go.
Yeah, there was a High Court judge. Sorry, tell a lie. It was a federal court judge, and he jailed this particular gentleman, and it was found that he'd made errors, and he actually, when this guy got out, he sued him, and he got put in jail.
Is that Stratford?
I think that was his name.
Stratford, yeah.
Yeah, and basically what happened was they appealed the decision and to the High Court, and the High Court said no, judicial officers can make mistakes.
Yeah, but Darren, if you read through that appeal, it's split into 2 parts because HZX versus QPS, my precedent, right? What happened there? That's different. So he had the ability of contempt of court, but he didn't have the ability. It's split into 2 parts. So Stratford versus Vassar might have won it, but Section 34 of the Crimes Act clearly says if a magistrate or judge acting when interested, that absolutely can be prosecuted.
So, acting when interested, as in they have some sort of stake in it?
Well, you watch magistrates turn around and they hadn't listened to the video footage, or they haven't listened to what someone said, and then they rule against it. Were they actually listening? Were they interested?
Were they
So,
acting?
in Jessica Hambrick's
Yeah. What's the definition of the term interest in that particular case? Is it because they were uninterested in doing their job that day, or is it a case of they have an actual vested interest in the outcome?
Well, the legislation breaks it down, but say, i.e. Jessica Hambrick's case, that I'm being sued for acting as a Mackenzie's friend rather than, sorry, that was Justice, acting as Mackenzie's friend when the paper said I was acting as a quasi-lawyer, which is a load of shit because I said, do I have leave to appear as a Mackenzie's friend? So in her case, Magistrate Dwyer acted when interested, I suppose, when she raised, she was arrested under her maiden name, which is something I'll talk about in a sec, under her maiden name. And she spelt out her married name. And on that, he went, right, that's it. Approach warrant. 3 hours later, the police were allowed into the court, and she was put in jail for 40 years because she tried to establish she was married. So under birth, deaths and marriages, which has recently happened with the Legal Service Commissioner in Brisbane, they said, are you Miss Ward? I said, well, I don't think so. I don't know. I played, dumb, stupid, because it sounds stupid. And I said, well, I was married, but I didn't realise that marriage certificate doesn't mean a name change. Unless you change your name as a female with births, deaths and marriages to that married name, your legal name always remains your maiden name. So God knows how I got my license, my tax bill, my bloody house. I don't know, because they're not in my legal name. They're all constructed trusts.
Isn't marriages covered by births, deaths, and marriages, of course? And doesn't that change? Oh, it's the same. That's still
So when you get married on the day of your wedding, you contract to your husband. Hence, the mercantile book says you can't contract with a married woman because they're already contracted to the husband.
Interesting.
So that's why I have forced the magistrate, which they're very good at now. They call me Mrs. Ward, and the magistrate did the whole way through my last thing, Mrs. Ward, Mrs. Ward. Well, when I'm putting in my application now, I said, I'm going to say there's a reason I asked you that, because you can't contract with me.
So doesn't this throw any married woman pretty much out of any court-based scenario in that?
Well, this is the foolish thing of women's rights. They all went, yeah, we want to work. I love working. I get potentially their background of why. But all it did was throw them in. Oh, the government's gone, great. 2 people in the family are going to pay tax. 2 people are going to do this. That they created this whole new system. When if the woman was smart, she'd just go under her husband's name and run it that way. So it's like, the whole rainbow thing, double income, no kids, right? The gays. Why would you want to get married if there's no tax or there's no anything? When you understand what marriage is, it's a registration to the bloody government.
Does anybody know a David Kay?
No.
Somehow I got a David Kay on a push bike just turned up in our feed here. I don't recall sending any more invites out. I'm curious. Let's see who David Kay is. Hello, David Kay. Hello, David Kay. How are you, mate? David Kay, roll along on a push bike or a motorbike of some sort. I have no idea how he got in here, but that is absolutely hilarious.
Is that link that you posted on Facebook?
Oh, hang on. Oh. Michael. I can't hear you, buddy. Sorry, mate. Can't hear you. Can you
But that
hear
wouldn't
me?
be him right now.
I don't
That's
know.
not him right now.
That couldn't be him right now.
No,
You're getting hacked.
he's
You
in
got hacked,
hospital.
mate.
I think we've been jacked somehow. That's
That
an
was
interesting one.
interesting.
I've never seen that happen before. We must really be pissing people off today.
Yeah. Wow.
I got lots
Go
of friends.
for it.
You've got
Wow.
lots of friends, do you, Jody?
I've got lots of friends.
We can handle that.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
South Bay is in the house.
Very wacky.
It's
That
AI.
is.
Anyway, let me fill you in on the council situation that's now in the Supreme Court. And I don't know how much I could say about this either. I probably can't because it was thrown out as frivolous and vexatious, but there's a judicial review and it's interesting. Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about the council in general. Why does the council not advertise to the public who their insurer is? Because any contract over $200,000 has to be advertised to the ratepayers and it has to be put through a council meeting. So if you were to ring the council now and say, look, who are you insured by? I'm pretty sure they're going to turn around and say, well, it's none of your business. Okay. Wouldn't they just turn around and say, oh, we're insured by the QGIF? Which if you Google the ABN number, I might I don't know. But anyway, the Queensland Government Insurance Fund, right? So the underwriter of the police. So the Queensland Government Insurance Fund has an unlimited underwriting of the QPS. So the state insurance. So if the council is not insured by the QGIF, do we now not prove that they've got nothing to do with government?
It's an interesting question. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they fundamentally operating their own business and with the illusion of some sort of government. You know, we've openly said as a people through our referendum we don't want local government, but they've somehow made it an act anyway. Yeah, I believe you guys you often say that they are fundamentally a body corporate. Is that correct?
Section
we're
11.
not saying it. It's in their act.
Section 11 of the LGA. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in their own act.
See, I learned
We're
158.
not saying it.
Now
The
I'm
Parliament's saying it.
The Parliament says it. It's not us.
The
So they
Parliament,
themselves have claimed that they are a body corporate. So shouldn't we have a little bit more of a say if we're a part of said body corporate?
Wouldn't that be like Parliament making an act for McDonald's? If they're not actually part of the government and it doesn't consist of anyone else but them, and they have a separate insurance company, and Section 11 says they're a body corporate, how do they get away with saying we're the local government under an act, the Local Government Act? And it was funny today, my friend Robert Sudi, who, Jody, I saw a thing with you with Sticky, with Wayne Glue, with Robert Sudi, right? So he's gone to town on me. So I posed a heap of questions on his site today, and he's like, I don't have to answer your questions. I have the biggest data base ever. And I went, yeah, whatever, right? He couldn't answer the question. So the FOI that you gave me, Darren, that says that they're a trading company, separate ABN, whatever, they have a separate insurance company to the government. That's it.
So
that
just a question for the numpties. If they're a body corporate, wouldn't they have to comply with the Corporations Act then?
That's right, which means they have the insurance. That's right.
Yeah,
so
we've been trying to get them because of the fact that they operate under an ABN, but an ABN doesn't require them to go under the Corporations Act, and this is how they got them in 2015 with the Queensland Rail trial about saying that the federal 109 obviously sits above the state constitution, so that's they keep answering me when I ask them where they get their power from in the third tier of government by saying Queensland Constitution, and then they jump right back to when they were a colony before federation. But if they've got it written in their in their local government act that they're a body corporate, then they are tied to the Corporations Act somewhere, which means that they need to be
100%. And if they've got a separate insurer, that proves that even more. Darren and Darren know more about this than me.
I'll be
sorry. They're under the Competition Consumer Act.
Section
and if you
10.
look at if you go to Section 2BA of the Competition Consumer Act, which used to be known as the Trade Practices Act, that it binds local government at the business side, so the CEO and those that issue the invoices. So they are they're then bound under Part 4 of the Act, and Part 4 of the Act is headed cartel provisions.
They're competing against each other. Yeah.
So they're defined as a cartel under the Competition.
They're defined as a cartel. And as such, Australian consumer law applies, of course. And of course, Section 50 of the Australian Consumer Law, Schedule 2, says that no corporation can harass or coerce any person to take of their goods or services. So we've got a situation where, and I was saying earlier, what is government? What is government today? And we find that they're a statutory corporation. And what's a statutory corporation? Does it trade? Is it financial or is it foreign? So what are those parameters? Because they're the only three types of corporations that exist in law. A trading, financial or foreign corporation. So government is supposed to be under the Crown, and they're supposed to have the immunities and protections of the Crown. And part of that is to be able to create a law for the public, for the good welfare of the general public. So how then can government step down to the level of a corporation and draft laws? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's right, Darryl. That's in common sense. So I'm in between you and Jody. So if we are subjects of the Crown, which is interesting in my case, they've put Regina, Commissioner of Police, they don't even know who they are, right? Yeah. If the subjects of the Crown are bound to the Constitution, how does council have authority over the people when they have no association whatsoever?
You've got to go to Clause 5.
Yep.
Clause 5 says that this Constitution, this Act is binding on the people of every state. So it doesn't matter whether you deem yourself to be a subject of the Crown or whatever. If you're operating in this country, you're bound by this Constitution and all the laws that fall within it. You're bound to the monarch, you're bound to the proper procedure that this Constitution applies. So they're trying to run bluff. And this is why we've been asking people, if you really want to find out what the government is at the moment in their current capacity, no matter what department, you do an FOI request and you ask them for their articles of association. Because then
I guess I can speak about. I just thought I'm trying to work out, because there was a private prosecution that's now turned to a judicial review. The judicial review is not under the private prosecution banner, and potentially this will establish these questions and the negotiations behind the scenes to shut me up. It's fascinating.
Yes,
fascinating.
That's right. They don't want this stuff to get out. And this is what Queensland Rail cited. They said that that corporation, that Queensland Rail, was a statutory corporation. Well, what the hell's that? I don't see that.
Is the police a statutory corporation?
Well, the police are. You'll find that the state...
The hospitals, the education system, any public sector.
They all are. And the Constitution, with respect to local government, it only recognises them as a municipal institution, which can only be regulated by the state as a department of the state, and that's it. So they most certainly can't be deemed to be a third tier of government, because
No.
they're a department of the state for the purposes of regulation, and they can only be known as a municipal institution. So
All
where
right.
does-
Are they a body corporate of the state government, or are they a body corporate of the community?
well, that's a good question, and this is something we need to.
Because we vote for the councillors that have no say, for the LGAQ or the VAQ.
What are they? And what does a body corporate actually express? And that's where you've got to go to the Body Corporate Act and sort of see where the parameters are for those that operate within a body corporate.
Yeah,
You know,
and I know that well within strata title units and body corporate and stuff like that, but they don't operate that way. They go ahead with their 13 executives and decide they're going to run. So right now, I think the Whitsundays has got 22 businesses. We're paying at the moment we're paying $446,000 to a bus to pick up people from a P&O cruise to bring them to town. What's that got to do with services?
Mm.
I think
We've got even better ones here in Townsville where they've set up all sorts of bloody weird shit. NQ Spark and fucking they got some smart precinct and all this other shit. All this money is being funneled into it. And what's this got? But in the meantime, we just had the flood and we've got turds running down the street.
Who's this guy? I'm right of centre. The Body Corporate Expresses milk.
Did somebody actually invite Dr. William Bay, or is this a troll pretending to be him?
I just saw something before.
Okay, maybe we need to throw in some historical facts in here so people can understand why this is all happening. And since Federation, the Commonwealth have been trying, because basically Section 5120, that power in the Constitution, all that is a power to regulate the creation of trading, financial, and what's the third one? Financial, trading, and
foreign,
corporations. So all they can do is regulate the creation. They only the states have the power, or before the year 2000, the states had the power of incorporation, okay, and the Commonwealth didn't. And various referendums where the Commonwealth asked for the power to do that, and the people said no every time. There's at least 3 referendums. Come forward to 1999, the year 2000. There's an act in every state which is called the Commonwealth Powers Corporations Act. And all of the states got together and they decided through Section 5138 of the Constitution to assign their corporations powers to the Commonwealth so that the Commonwealth could write uniform laws for corporations across the nations. So whatever applied to a corporation in Western Australia applied in Queensland, applied in Tasmania, applied in Victoria. So they essentially gave up their corporations powers and gave that to the Commonwealth. And then the Commonwealth wrote the Corporations Act, for example, Competition and Consumer Act, all these various acts surrounding corporations. So that's how the Commonwealth acquired the corporations' powers. It was by stealth through Section 5138 of the Constitution, because they couldn't acquire it by asking us, the people.
Was that 58? What was that section of the Constitution? Sorry,
51,
51.
subsection 20.
Is that why Justice Elderman wasn't a Commonwealth officer?
Don't know.
Sorry, personal in between the three. No,
that's got to do with another act called the Public Performance and Accountability Act 2013. And did we discuss this last week, or did we discuss this on the radio show? We've been discussing it a little bit lately. I think we discussed it in the car on the way home, actually, from the radio show the other night. That's where it was. So what it actually is it's interesting, because when you look at that act, it says in Section 10 that there are 2 types of Commonwealth entities: Commonwealth corporate entities and Commonwealth non-corporate entities.
Yeah.
Okay, so some that are companies, okay, statutory corporations. So, and we know statutory corporations are not
the creatures of statute, yeah.
The creatures of statute, but they're not the Crown, and they don't have the benefits or privileges of the Crown.
Well, that might potentially be in some paperwork of mine. Thanks, Darryl.
And so basically, you know, then there are a Commonwealth non-corporate.
I saw that, Jody.
Commonwealth non-corporate entities. So Commonwealth non-corporate entities, let me in on the joke.
Jody, you go on. Did you see what? No, you don't want to? All right.
No.
Oh, no. I mean, you're talking serious shit, and I'm taking every opportunity to write down some good learnings here.
Right,
but I'm just listening. I just love the trolls. There are some creative trolls out there, and look, honestly, there's some gifted
it's a
trolls.
sport. It's a sport for me. I love it. Yeah.
Cool.
People get so offensive, like, don't come on my page, I'm an influencer. I'm like, come on.
It's like the old
bring it up.
It's like the old saying, you know, my computer just beat me at chess, but I beat the shit out of it in kung fu. You know, they have their fun behind their screens, but they know that if we ever got our hands on them, it'd be a different thing. But
put them in the court amongst us. Yeah.
Well, most of them live in their mum's basement, and their mum's yelling out, "Get off the internet! I've got to go and phone my friends," or something along those lines. Mum, I'm trolling. So. But yeah, anyway, sorry, mate. Keep going. I was genuinely listening and writing it down. So
no, you're right. So we just discussed the Commonwealth non-corporate entities, which are body corporates, Commonwealth corporate entities, and then there's Commonwealth non-corporate entities. So they're the original departments, all of the things that should be there under the Constitution. So, you know, you've got the original structure, which is non-corporate, and then you've got this new structure, which is corporate. And even with the non-corporate, a lot of those departments have been sold off. Most of the corporate Commonwealth entities, what they are is they're agencies that have been created through statute, and all they've done is they've basically sold them all off to the oligarchs, and all the money that used to go into the consolidated revenue and into the Commonwealth, and you know that we could rely upon, that's all going overseas now to oligarch families. So that's you've probably heard, you know, over the last 30, 40 years, we've just sold off this department, we got $15.3 billion, and that's going to help us with the national debt. Well, guess what? It might help out for 10 or 15 years, but then after that, we've got no more money coming in. So what really, are you actually benefiting the country by selling off a department that's bringing in all this money and just for some short-term stimulation? And that's all it is. So the government looks good. The government of the day looks good. Oh, look, we solved the national debt. We sold off these departments, and we've taken we've lowered the amount that each Australian owes. But really, in reality, down the track, in the big picture, you know, all of the generations after us, they're going to suffer because they're not making any money.
Well, Darren, if I can break in there, the classic of, you know, whether it's true or not, people really worried about their super, and potentially they are. But having been a small business owner with the ebbs and flows of small business my whole life, I had to pay people super before I paid my own. So there's no obligation that a business owner has to pay their own super. None whatsoever. All right? So all of a sudden we're seeing everyone freaking out because of the tariffs and things like that. And you have to go, why I've gone totally off topic, I get it, but why are we gambling our money on the stock market without any insurance or guarantee? Why?
Good question.
If you purchased a house, that's your decision whether you sell or buy it, you sell it or hang on to it, renovate it, do it up, whatever. You know, that's an investment. Why are we all, every individual in this country, compulsory without right, paying into a super fund that is not insured, that can, and I can tell you my ex-husband's father's super fund went down and he lost the lot. Right? So if you put $1,000 into super, there should be some guarantee that $1,000 stays there. If it makes money, great. But because it's forced super.
So the principle, what you're saying is there should be a law to stop the principle from being lost.
Correct. Thanks, Darren. Yes.
Well, because it's enforced through statutory means, and the government's behind that, then of course there should be a government guarantee to say the principal amount will always remain, and the government will back that up.
There's nothing.
Nothing. They back our banks to $250,000, don't they? So why can't they do that to superannuation? I mean, that's under right. 200 and 250,000 would be. Or
Jody, big business. If a big business, like we saw it with the through COVID, was it bloody not Ansett? I'm showing my age now. Qantas. Yeah, they backed them all these millions of dollars.
Yeah, 2.2 billion, 2.7 billion.
Yep.
Yeah. But when we look at it, they're backing the banks. They might back the superannuation company, just no one else. So just because you have an account with the bank doesn't mean you've been backed. Just because you've in the superannuation fund doesn't mean you're back. But they'll probably back all those companies and corporations, no doubt, particularly if they serve their interests.
No, it doesn't say anything that there's that many, it's stock market, it's a broker essentially. In what are they called? Trying to think of the superannuation. They're all just bloody people, and they just trade on the stock market with your money.
Yeah, they're mutual fund specialists. But the old adage was the rich person in the limousine. The rich person takes the limousine to Wall Street to get told by a bloke who caught the train what to do with his money.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. That's the best saying I've heard. I was trying to say that to someone the other day. Why would you go to a financial broker when they're sitting in a shit office and you've got more money than them?
Yeah. Yes, I think the secret is in the word broker.
And then you get all the trolls going, self-managed, this and that. But you have to, when I looked at self-managed a long time ago, you have to earn over a certain amount of money before you can have your self-managed super, and then it's got to be an arm's distance apart what you buy, and there's all these regulations. So then you've got to set up a trust, and you've got to set up a lawyer, and this and that. So it's not really until you get into, well and truly bigger than six-figure numbers that makes any sense to you. Right? The average Joe on the street wouldn't have a clue. Mm-hmm. The average Joe on the street probably wouldn't have a clue.
The biggest thing is that. The biggest thing from my point of view, we hear people scream all day long about, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Like that's the key things, and I'm like, well, your money there's over $4 trillion of your money invested with them primarily. So if you want to draw a line in the stand for principles, then we need to remove our money from them. If the only way we can do that is spend $15,000 setting up a self-managed super fund like I did, and got rid of every share option and just bought gold and silver and a block of land. That's what I had to do. Now, it doesn't always make total sense that it's going to be financially viable. But again, if your $4 trillion investment is currently sitting with those big guys and $1.2 trillion of that is invested overseas, then we have to start saying, well, somewhere along the line, we have to wind this back in somewhere. And that's probably. Well,
here's a tip. Have you ever wondered why? So my partner works on the big luxury boats, right? Have you ever wondered why every marina, everywhere you go, and every capital city's got all these massive boats, and everyone looks at them and goes, like, I wonder who owns that. They must be rich. The days of our lives kicks in. If you go belly up and you get filed bankruptcy or against you or whatever, they can't take your boat. Can't touch your boat. It's in the water. It's not on the land. So they can repossess everything you've got, but not your boat.
Even if it's docked at a marina, which is
if it's docked at a marina, right? So that's why all these boats aimlessly.
They have jurisdiction over the first, I think it's 5 nautical miles.
No. These boats, that's why there are so many of them. You don't know who they are.
Is that how the government manages to trade through Norfolk Island and insolvent without going, going broke?
Darryl?
They just got a heap of boats over
You're
there
on.
more than Norfolk.
The government aren't trading through Norfolk
Darryl
Island.
can answer that question.
Darren's done a really good presentation on Norfolk Island.
Okay, you're on, Darren.
I've been to Norfolk Island a few times actually.
Yeah, I've been once. It's a terrific place.
There's a parallel government running there by the Norfolk Island people that I sometimes go and visit. But there's definitely not a parallel government running through Norfolk Island. If there is, I'd love to see some evidence of it, because I know lots of people say it is, but if you've got some evidence, some bank statements, and people were going, oh look, what was the tariffs there? Was it 23%?
29.
Yeah,
29%, and then people were saying that the tariffs are because just to take some of the money that they're laundering. Well,
I don't know what Norfolk Island's actually
tariffs
giving
are on
to
goods,
anybody.
not on international money transactions. So there's people that are just grasping at straws through the air.
But why would there be a tariff on Norfolk Island? I don't know what they're exporting.
The story for what Darren was saying is that in the Acts Interpretation Act, somewhere between 1901 and now, they changed that definition from the Commonwealth of Australia for the landmass to now it says geographically includes Norfolk Island, Christmas Island, Cocos Islands, and excludes all other external territories. So people are saying that the exclusio, the maximum law inclusio exclusio is applied because they've changed that definition to include those islands and then removed anything else. That's where
the Coco Islands actually did self-determination. So I'm just giving you the why we're talking about that, why we're asking that question is why they changed their definition, why they changed the definition and include that island, and then Albanese makes reference to it in a speech that's just completely got nothing to do with it. He suddenly brings it out about 29% tariff. So that's because the average individual wouldn't even know about it.
Okay, can I say this because I've done a lot of research on Norfolk Island. Probably why the Americans are imposing, it's not just on Norfolk Island, I think it was on Christmas Island as well, which is the island that's in between the Western Australia and Indonesia. So we're talking about the one out in the Pacific and the one in between Indonesia. That's where the tariffs are. And I'll tell you what the most likely reason for that is because, and there's literature on this, they want to get the people off those islands. Okay, so basically cutting into their profits. Okay, they're going to have to move to the mainland, and basically they want those islands as military bases. That's what it actually is. If you go to, this is the thing, when you read the Acts Interpretation Act, you've got to read the whole thing together. And another thing is because people say, oh, it's Australia, when using a geographical sense, includes Norfolk Island, the other territories. So the thing is, they're talking about in a geographical sense and not in a political sense. So if they're laundering money through there, it would have to be in a political sense because it would have to be the entity, the Commonwealth of Australia, and that's in a political sense and not in a geographical sense. So that's the first problem there. The second one is in Section 15AA of the Acts Interpretation Act, it says that the interpretation that would best achieve the purpose or object of the act is the preferred interpretation to any other interpretation. So in other words, what it says is what it says, and some wacky, way out, interpretation, like, for example, if it was, well, Russia is the Cocos Islands or Jamaica is Italy. That makes no sense. Okay. When you apply it, because you've got to read the whole act together. So 15AA is the interpretation that best achieves the act's purpose or object. And then 15AB talks about the use of extrinsic material in interpreting an act, and it gives you a list of what you can interpret and what that theory comes up with. has not got any of that information there. And 15B is very interesting because it's the application of the Act in coastal seas. And you've got the coastal seas of Australia in there, and you've got the coastal seas of the external territory. Now, if Australia is Norfolk Island and the coastal seas of Australia are defined as the coastal seas of Australia, how can Australia be Norfolk Island if the seas of Norfolk Island are defined as the territorial coastal seas of Norfolk Island? It's just all this wacky contradiction. It just can't happen. And if you go to, there's lots of case law, and I'm happy to provide it to you in respect of the courts. Although they used to use that maxim, inclusio, exclusio, ulterius, whatever it is.
Uno sanctum.
That was Uno sanctum. That was over more than 120 years ago. And what legislators have done now is they're doing exactly that. They're using the meaning that would best suit the object of the act, the most simplified meaning, so that the average man can read the act. So they've actually moved away, and you can see it in the case law if you go and apply all the case law in regards to expressio unius exclusio ulterius. And they say it's a valuable tool, but is one that must be watched. And if you actually, have a look at the definition, the true definition of the maxim, I'll read it. I've got it here. It is a general use as a canon of construction of statutes and other legal documents, indicating that the express inclusion of one or more things of a particular type necessarily implies an intention to exclude others of that type. So the type that it's including are territories. Okay, so it's not excluding Australia, it excludes Australia, because after the word include, okay, the specific thing or particular type of thing is a territory. So,
this goes back to use of fruct and all of these. So you're getting very complicated now.
Look, it does. But, the thing is, you can't just pluck one thing out of an act and run with it. You've got to actually read what the rest of the act says. And there's about 4 or 5 different sections of the act that invalidate all of that. Australia is Norfolk Island. Like, it actually invalidates it. It cannot be.
I don't know how we got onto Norfolk Island.
And I've put it out there many times, if someone can provide an information, one document where it shows that the Commonwealth of Australia is trading through Norfolk Island, and you think that would be in the
no, that's where the office is set up by the Crown.
Commission. So there's all the trading through the Securities and Exchange Commission. You think that you would find it in there, in all that documentation where they're saying Australia is a corporation and blah blah blah, it's registered in Washington DC. You think you would find that trading that you're talking about that's going through Norfolk Island, you would find it in the paperwork on the US Securities and Exchange Commission, but it's simply not there.
Do you think they could be the magistrate?
And I'll put it to anyone who's watching. Come up with one document that shows us that money's being laundered through Norfolk Island by the Commonwealth Government. It's not.
Do you think they could just be the Magistrates Court of the State of Australia, so they're just doing the admin over there?
Yeah, at one stage, Norfolk Island was a tax haven for major corporations, and major corporations had offices in Norfolk Island, but the ATO came and closed all that down. And I think that was around about the year 2000. So it was a tax haven, but for companies, like they have in other places. But yeah, if someone can come up with one document, just one document, where the Commonwealth government are putting the consolidated revenue, or even some politicians.
Does it have to come through would it have to go through the company itself, Darren? Like the company or the country itself? Like so I'm hunting down at the moment through the birth registry. I've just found the QSIP number that my birth registration number is tied up against on that stock exchange you're talking about. So does it have to be? Do you think it has to be the entire country that's doing it, or can they be circumventing it by having the individual registrations of those QSIP numbers into the Securities Exchange Commission that we're talking about?
That's a whole nother. That's all UCCR. That's a whole.
Okay, so you're talking about using people's birth certificates as documents of slavery and ownership. That's what you're talking about, aren't you?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not so. And this is the mistake that people make. So if we liken it to what you're saying, that the Commonwealth are laundering all this money, okay, and you're saying they're doing it covertly through individual birth certificates,
Yep.
I put it to you that the Commonwealth have nothing to do with our birth certificates, and the birth certificates are created within the state.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be the states would have to be doing that. It's the states that have the or hold those particular.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right.
Not
Sorry,
the
So,
Commonwealth.
Jody, it's the $1 million question
See,
that
it just
everyone's
keeps falling
asking. How do
apart.
you get
It keeps
How do you
falling
get your
apart.
trust? Yeah.
It just keeps
that's all right.
falling apart.
But I think the elephant in the room, where is all this money going? We only have to look at the ultimate holding company.
Yeah, super fund.
And, well, why is the ultimate holding company, why do they own or do they manage the ATO, BlackRock,
IRS.
Vanguard, Bank of America? These are the private funds that actually take the money that should be going to consolidated revenue.
Yep.
And
So
this
that's
is
in
where
my
the
court
money's
case,
going.
Darryl. I've got that in my court case. And the other thing is when you talk about, I've gone off topic now. So where does this money, so take spur? You know, if you owed me money and I owed you money, it'd be stealing. It's not going to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. It's all going to the Treasury, Department of Treasury. It's not even under the Corporations Act. So they're running these corporations that are not under the Corporations Act. So if they're not under the Corporations Act in Australia, they'd have to be running somewhere else, aren't they?
Well,
Right?
it's a foreign corporation.
That's right.
They're
An
registered.
international. Can I change this to a bit of fun? Jody,
Yes,
do you have a Queensland driver's license?
I do.
You sound like one of the trolls now, Heidi.
Shush.
Those are the kind of questions that trolls ask.
How many? Okay. Have you got in your back pocket?
Yeah, I've got it here.
Yep. How many photos on it?
One.
Take your license out and have a look at it.
Oh, you mean the mirrored version in the background?
No, on the front of your license.
Oh no, there is two.
Did you sign your name on that license?
I did.
In that, no, you didn't. You signed it on a piece of paper and it's electronically transferred.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So that circle around your license, just for shits and giggles, because we know people are listening, what does that circle actually say around the roller and the emu? Can't read it.
I'm going to need a fucking good set of eyes on that.
It says valid, 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 valid. Why would you need to say this is valid? All right. Then turn it on an angle in a light and have a look at the film over at the top of it where it says Queensland Government lowercase. Tell me what it says on the film, the copyright over the top of it. Queensland, is it in lowercase or uppercase?
Uppercase.
Yeah. Where is Australia written on your forehead? On your forehead, sorry. That wasn't a good question.
Sitting on top of my fat head.
Yeah. So turn it over. So Darryl taught me about Unidroit. It's the Holy See. There's stars around the Australia silver stars. That's Unidroit. And what do you reckon that on the right-hand side, that QR code is? Because bugger me, I've gone into every transport department. I've put a phone over it. You can't find it. That's your credit score number. It's already on your license.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And you carry it each and every day. This
Well,
is
thank
the,
you.
you know how you're trying to wake people up? That's
Yes.
what I do. Here's
Yep.
your license. What's this? Is there one picture? No, there's two. It's showing there's the living and the dead, right, on your license.
Yep. Brilliant. Thank you.
That's why you
'Cause
try and bring your license up in court. No.
I was almost running out of rabbit. I was almost running out of rabbit holes, and I'm just congratulating. Thank you for the shovel. I'm just on the new one.
Oh, there's plenty more. There's plenty more.
Plenty more.
You run out, just let us know. Yep. So we can get to the passport and we can keep going. But yeah. So
don't do that on my behalf. I was just sticking my little beak into something, and
No. I was just trying to lighten up the seriousness of the conversation, because you're making posts at the moment which are, I find, very humble, and you really just like wake the fuck up to people.
Yep.
And that's the best way. So if I start a conversation with someone, you're out and you're like, you're a conspiracy theorist, and I go, well, how many photos on your license? And they go, one. And I said, no, I'm the conspiracy theorist, take it out. And they go, they have a little conniption.
And I'm very good at telling people that, I am literally, the problem is, right, with me, I mean, not the problem with me, I am literally the average Australian, right? And if I can't get it, they can't get it. I have to be the filter between what the intelligent people who have these years and years of dedication, right, what they're saying.
Or you don't have ADHD.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but like I have to be that filter, because if it can't, in my eyes, I'm such a good representation of the average meathead, knuckle dragon, ex-football player, ex-beer drinker. And yes, I know I was, you said bring a beer on, so I brought 0 beer on,
Oops.
0 beer. 2 years without alcohol, so that my brain can actually function. But I'm
Darren, you're letting the team down, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be the litmus test for what you guys talk about, right? Because I've got to be able to explain it like a 5-year-old to people. I work with coal miners. People think we underground coal miners wear gumboots because it's wet. It's not. It's just too hard to tell them how to do the shoelaces up every day, right? So, I'm trying to find, that medium ground where I'm teaching more than preaching, right? So.
I'm totally with you, Jody. Like, man, I feel very much the same. Like, I'm just blessed to have all these great people in my company to help explain it to little old me, because I get confused quite easy. And as I've quite often said to a lot of people, I was the last person in primary school to learn how to read. I think it was grade 3 by the time they figured out I'd been conning them the whole time. I was great at pretending
I'm with you, Mark. You and I are the same.
Mate, now they get all the way through.
They
get all the way through.
I mean, I'm still working on this one, though. It's to help me with trolls.
Billy Goat's Gruff.
Yeah.
I have a whole heap of those books.
Hey, Mark, I just sent you a video that you might want to put on. It goes for 19 seconds.
Via email?
Email.
Yep.
It's not a one goat video, is it?
Which?
Billy Goat Gruff video.
Definitely not.
Hang on a sec. I'm just gonna have to re-log into my email.
No, we just have to look at to see old Billy Goat Gruff.
And this is why I've connected with Jody, because it is so important. And I want to talk about, when we get back from this video, about this book I've just read called Indoctrinated. So I saw Jody's videos like, wake the fuck up, and why potentially they're not. Darryl, wake the fuck up, right? You just have to say something sideways to me and I'm fucking awake.
You're on to it.
Just add a couple of beers and I can make sense of it.
Yeah, good. We're on the same wavelength.
Does this make
It's
sense?
Friday.
I haven't had enough to drink.
On a Friday night are sitting doing this. We're just nerds.
Mm-hmm. But I suppose getting back to the
which email did you send it to, Darren? It wasn't NQ, was it? Did you send it to my old baddie one, or Aussie Icon?
I can do some marketing for Darren Darryl while he's looking for that. He needs a background.
BB at HM.
Yeah, cool. Got it. Oh, that's an ad. Bloody ads.
Sorry, is that not your email?
No, it is. I've just got a few of them. So it's just to it's like a lot of people use folders and all this shit in the emails. I just get a different email for every purpose, that way I can keep up with what's going on. But I remember you've had like my old school stuff for so long that that email is kind of like a dumping ground these days. It's kind of it's like whenever they ask what's your email, I give them that one now because I don't use it as much as I used to. So NQ Freedom Network is the one I tend to sort of focus around the show.
I'm not even sure if I've got that. Maybe is that what you send me the links with?
Yeah, I send you the links with that one.
Yeah,
I'm trying to educate you to the new email, but it's just not sinking in, man.
I'm old school. I'm old school.
Do you need a lawyer, Darren?
Here, let me help you out. It's this one, all right?
Yeah, I can't help you.
Network at protonmail.com.
I'm being sued by the commissioner. Sorry, can't help you.
Do you need
That'll
a
be Exhibit 4 now. You wait.
All right, so Roger Cook is the one we're bringing in, correct?
Yeah, he's the Premier of Western Australia.
All right, here we go.
In the event earlier today, perhaps an unprofessional moment. I didn't mean any offence by it. I don't think the people in the Oval Office are listening to a sub-jurisdictional CEO in Western Australia, but I'll leave most of that commentary up to the feds.
Did you hear that? So he's the Premier, and he calls himself a sub-jurisdictional CEO.
And he'll leave it up to the defence. So that's Melissa McCann's federal class action on COVID. She's gone about it the wrong way. She's gone to the federal, right? Should be state. Interesting.
Well, let's just hear that again for
he's a bit of a knob, isn't he?
It was a light moment in the event earlier today, perhaps an unprofessional moment. I didn't mean any offence by it. I don't think the people in the Oval Office are listening to a sub-jurisdictional CEO in Western Australia, but I'll leave most of that commentary up to the feds.
Wow.
Sub-jurisdictional CEO.
So
what exactly was the? I'm curious now. What the comment was? Is he had a crack
beforehand? Yeah, me too.
Trump or something.
So he was referring to Trump and the many conversations that are going on in the Oval Office about Australia and what's going on over here, and mainly the tariffs and everything are being put on us because of our breaches of freedom of speech. That's the message that Trump's trying to send there, is my understanding. So any country that basically does not uphold freedom of speech, they're getting the heavy tariffs thrown against them. Yeah.
Now we've seen that with the UK government, so which is good to see. I'm surprised he hasn't taken the opportunity to have a go at Elbow, seeing it's election time. Like I don't know, is Trump? Do we think that Trump's perhaps playing the "let's not interfere in the election" sort of card, or he's just not that interested in Australia at this particular moment?
How about we don't talk about Trump?
But I like my "Make America Go Away," not "Make America," "Make Elbow Go Away" hat. I like being able to take it something like MAGA and turn it into anything you want.
At the end of the day, we're all basic biscuit people on here, talking like basic. We're good people, just having a conversation. We'd all get along around a campfire, right?
Yeah.
If there was a plane crash somewhere and you landed on an island, how do you think Elbow would go with Prince Charles?
I think he'd be the first one we'd volunteer to eat.
Yeah.
This guy's useless just sits on a bull. The only thing he can provide here is some fat for some soap and a bit of meat for us to sustain ourselves.
And
That's just my
this
thoughts.
is the logic Jody's trying to get across. people are just going, oh, yeah, I'll vote because I have to vote.
Mm.
They can see he's lying. This is the bit I want to say. I just read this book as I read 3 books a week in the nerdy me, right? It's called Indoctrinated. It talks about the hippocampus of the brain and what's happened with the spike protein from the doobie jab crossing the blood-brain barrier without getting scientific. It's actually given 90% of people dementia. And I've actually spoken to friends of mine who are vaccinated, who are very open with me about their side effects. And they're like, I just can't remember anything. Can't remember anything. They've got onset dementia already. That's why there's all these people that are, they know. Rod Cullerton, Darryl, told me, great lawyer. She went back into her room, died of a heart attack.
Yeah, I got to admit, I used to know twice as much.
Shut up, Darren.
Well, I used to know
Jody,
10 times.
we know each other too well. He was just being a smart ass.
I know. I put a post out there the other day that I was doing one of those stupid TikTok videos.
I'm not offended either.
I was doing one of those TikTok videos where I said that I rang up the government about giving away the free gas, and the government said, hang on, hold the phone. And they came back and said, don't worry, we're going to pay you 100 times more than what we're currently paying for it. And I was like, she told them I'm pretty clever. And
you put the face on, yeah.
All of these comments underneath it were, but 100 times 0 is still 0. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Thank you for pointing it out. I've got a TikTok filter with googly eyes this big and a jaw that comes up the side of my face. And they're taking me seriously. They're still taking me seriously. And I'm like, guys, I'm trying to use comedy to break through to that, that 7 jab, sort of thing. Like, and so that was my joke then. Was like, I'm 10 times smarter than what I was when I started this journey.
Joke became
if you,
another
if
joke.
you want to boggle them with logic, tell them it's satire.
They wouldn't even know what they'd be looking upstairs going, what Saturn? Oh, Satan. So, it's like Katy Perry and fucking these people going to space for 10 minutes, whatever.
Oh, how fucking hilarious was that?
I'm not fucking going there, right? But what's happened is the hippocampus through the blood spiking. And my friend, like 2 of them, they said, I went to do something yesterday. I couldn't remember what I was doing. And I worked with him. He worked for me. We worked together for 5 years. And he invited me over for dinner. And I was just like, I don't know why I'm here. They're not even talking to me. What's going on? He said, I don't know. I'm just weird. And then we went out to dinner with another lady who's trying to have a baby. She can't. And with her husband. And I just explained that, and she said, I am doing the same thing. She's very honest about it. Can't remember anything. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. But she's honest about it.
Pretty soon in, I come across a lady who was saying that, she used to always kind of feel a bit of a... what's the proper term for this without sounding too out there, like a...
Parkinson's disease.
No, it had nothing to do with cheese.
Just say it. Just say it. Just say it.
No, well, you like a sixth sense, like a sixth sense connection with people around her and whatnot, And as soon as she took that, she felt like something had been taken away, and just completely empty, and can no longer feel that same connection with her fellow man the way she used to.
Because she didn't want to get it in the first place, so she lost her belief in herself.
Possible. Who's to say it could be a psychosomatic response.
It could just be, that's right. It could be placebo, right?
Yeah. I had a woman explain it to me like that, an ex-teacher, that she'd lost her zest for life. Like, she'd be over in the corner smelling the flowers, and nothing's driving her to do it anymore. So there was something that was stripped out of them, like where maybe your soul, who knows?
Yeah. Is it the jab? Is it or is it a psychological effect that something like this has happened to them? It's a deep scarred trauma.
Oh, this book goes into what's actually happened and the people that in this silence indoctrination. It's 1984, George Orwell. If you haven't read it, read it. Or
definitely read it.
And Animal Farm, his other book. So So it literally is what, Jody, I think you said on your podcast. Have you read that, Jody? The book?
Yeah, I read both of them. Yep.
Yeah. So it's sort of what you put on your thing the last couple of days. Wake the fuck up. It's on your doorstep.
Yeah, that's right.
You
I mean,
know?
this is not time to sit back and watch anymore. This is every single person should be challenging
100%.
every single way that they are. If you're most people continue to say this is a spiritual war, and learn nothing about their energetic or soul connection in this vibration frequency type thing. Then they say that it's a physical war, and they only fight it on Sundays between 11 and 12, and other than that, they just share posts. So I'm sure my granddad.
I'm fighting the cause.
I'm sure my granddad would have been sitting there like that with his gun going, and they at 5 o'clock on the Friday when they blow the whistle and say, "Hey boys, you got the weekend off with yeah, see us on Monday." It's a war, right? Every day, every minute. This is not a pastime.
That's right. And people go to me, "Oh, you spend so much time doing this, you've got no life anymore." It's like, do you get it? Here we are on Friday night. Look at us. Cool guys out having a party.
Having a good time, having a drink with my friend.
I love a party. I love a dance too. But right now, if you're not getting the seriousness of it, and I think there's presumption, Darren, presumption. There's not many of us left that are really putting in the fight. Darryl's been doing it. How many years have you been doing it for, Darryl?
Oh, it's only about 25.
Yeah. So Darryl was one of the quick starters in life. And he saw this. So imagine being back then.
I've got a question there for Darryl. Can you read that question?
You're getting trolled right now, Jody. Imagine what Darryl's been through.
Yeah, well, I was...
They used to send them by carrier pigeon.
Go on, Darryl.
That's right. There's still laws to protect them pigeons too. It's okay.
Yeah, it's, I was talking to a room with about 120 people at one point. There were a lot more awake people, but a lot of people who were coming over from countries like Hungary and Poland. And they were saying, I'm starting to see in Australia what happened in Hungary and Poland.
Yeah.
Communist countries, yeah.
The communism stepped in and took over, and they're really worried because they love Australia. And they were so concerned, and they thought no one was teaching anybody in this country about what the law here said. And they jumped to my meetings like a shot out of a gun because they thought this is the only place we're learning this stuff. And it sort of spread from there. And, it's all about, and I've tried to instill it in my kids, and whatever opportunity I could get publicly to put this out there, put this message out there. Australia, wake up, please. It's a slow, gradual strangulation that this system is putting on you. And, hey, I got a perfect example of that strangulation with my voice at the moment. But, it's time to wake up. It's time to do your little bit. Wake up to what this system can and cannot do. Realise that constitution is your owner's manual for government. You don't operate a TV or whatever without looking at the owner's manual first.
Well, I don't know. I've got a little joke here at home, and it's usually when you can't figure out what's going on, it's time to pull instructions out of the bin. But then there's the secondary one, which is, you know why they put instructions in the box, right? That's so women can do stuff too, which usually gets me a quick smack in the back of the head. And I had a feeling, that was the response I was expecting. But that's why you say it. It's to get that response.
I'll front you the $111.70, Heidi.
He says you're done, mate. Did you go red?
Hey, Mark, do you need a lawyer?
I think I might. That'd be an interesting showdown, wouldn't it?
No, but what Darryl's saying is right, and I can attest to, like, you know, I'm ringing Darryl with my own problems, what happened to me, and now people ring me, and I can see they're only interested in their own matters. But what Darryl and Darren are doing, it's not about their own matters; it's about everybody.
Yeah.
And that taught me to also look out for other people. They naturally gravitate to you because you're all in court together and you get new friends. I had a dinner party the other day and there was 225 years of convictions between us.
Wow.
Everyone did the dishes, everyone mucked in, it was great. They're all alleged. Well, now they're not, because Pete and Jess, well, you just saw that on the news article. Yeah. That we lost 50 years off that one.
Mm. And to go back to that particular point, it's really doing wonders to instill faith in for the people in these.
That's
systems.
an interesting comment that lady just said about teaching Latin. So I speak a few languages, and they're all Latin based. So if you're in Italy or Spain, whatever, German, you can understand some basics, right?
I thought this here from
But
Clark.
why don't they teach Latin anymore?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it's they don't want you to pull that manual out of the bin.
Isn't the is any of our language written in proper English anymore? Anyway, I mean, for the most part, from what I can see, it's all written in gobbledygook, bloody dog Latin.
Hey Jody, you're from Ingham. Did you say North Queensland?
I had
Cavagan, Uvagoose, Beavergeek, Bavagak, Slavagang. Novago?
I went up there for 2 years, lost $400,000, and was never going back. So
yeah. Mark, can you?
Oh, a little bit. I'm not that fluent.
Cavagan, Uvagoo, Avagan, Dovagus, Savagan, Meavagee.
Yeah. Beyond me,
can.
sorry.
See?
I get a bit of it.
Yeah, you can.
Pig Latin.
That's it.
I can hear it and probably translate most of it.
My Vagine, Navagame, Evagis, Hivagai, Devagee. It's putting the adjective before the noun.
I haven't had enough beer. I got a couple more in the fridge. I might be sharper a bit later.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Joseph just said in the comments that they continue with their agendas without pause, and they're right. I mean, this is, I don't know whether you can see that, but this is, every now and again I go back and do, I call it Cooker 101, and I give them a rundown. It takes 2 hours, but I give them a rundown starting at COVID.
Oh.
I give them a rundown starting at COVID, and I take them through every single little agenda that they've got going at the moment. Right from the UN disaster risk reduction plan into our third tier of council, the UNDRR. I talk about the World Economic Forum, talk about the World Health Organization.
But Jody, this is all run through the LGAQ, don't you, or the AGAQ, or the LA. So every state territory has it. So Queensland is the Local Government Association Queensland. Every council pays, so the Gold Coast pays $2 million to be an associate directly connected to the UN.
Yeah, and that's what I'm. And it's not just me talking about it, because, like I said, I'm a conduit. I talk to what books to talk to, who to listen to, and foundations and different members. They already anyway, because I do this, roadside fines and all that. But you're right. Like, people, for the average person to try and just keep up or even pick a fight to stay in. I mean, I'm talking the climate change, 15-minute city, social credit scores, CBDCs, franchises. You were talking about fish and chips before, right? The reason being is that Woolworths and Coles and all that bought out the secondary suppliers of PFD and Bidfest in the background, because they're setting up every franchise to be the exact same tasting food no matter where you go, so that a 15-minute city model works, because there'll be 100%. No reason for you to move from one part of the city to the other one.
Bennett salt. Yeah.
Jimmy Chong Chinese will be tasting exactly the same here and there, so there'll be no reason to move. You can see it through the Europe sort of models already. And like you said about the banking, the banking for the last 5 to 6 years, they've been been categorising all of your spend on your banking certificate, on your banking statement.
Yeah, pet food, baby's clothes.
And now that just links straight up to your little carbon credit score up at the top there. I mean, you've got
on
your
the bottom of your license. Yeah.
All of your companies getting the environmental, social, governance scores leaning in on them. So now we see them trying to lease back our Crown. They're going to lease our Crown land, which means that we won't be allowed to go on it because of the UNDRR.
Or do reverse mortgages for people that can't afford. Yeah.
So yeah, they're right. I mean, this is one conversation, and talking about when we get in front of these pricks and how do we.
All right. Them. Well, how do we stop it? Right.
Side by side, arm in arm, the way that I've always fought it when I was a unionist back in the day, and I'm not a unionist anymore. But I know that the only way that we used to win things was when we stood side by side, arm in arm, and showed them what the numbers really counted for in this country. Because
exactly.
And that's the struggle that we're all fighting is with the numbers.
Yeah.
That's
the numbers here
problem.
Of viewers that just continue to climb. So
I've got to go to the toilet.
Numbers. Yeah, I was just thinking pee break's probably not a bad idea myself, actually.
I have to go to the loo. Sorry, everyone, if that's inappropriate.
No,
I can see the relief on Darryl's face. He's like, yeah, I wanted to too.
Pee break.
Heidi, you are allowed to exercise the prerogative.
I didn't ask for your fucking permission, mate. Go to the loo.
I wasn't giving you any.
$111.70. No. All right. Can I go?
All right. Yeah, you can go. Does anybody who not needs to go to the toilet want to continue, or shall I quickly have an intermission? Let's take some numbers. Heidi's gone. She's intermission. Intermission?
Yep.
We all agree intermission? All right. No worries. We'll be back in 3 minutes and 55 seconds after we hear a little bit of my old heavy metal head banging tunes.
everyone happy now?
Yeah.
Well,
So going back on the topic, what do we do? So in my recent case, I went to the Ethical Standards Command. I went to the CCC. I got a one-line thing, oh, not enough evidence. The only way I've found redress in my entire situation is to privately prosecute for $111.70. Whilst it's a joke of a little bit of money, it's the only way to hold the individual. So every public servant that works for the government is personally liable. Education department, nurse, whatever. Is that right? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it's so Darryl always said to me, he said, because Darryl's great at explaining stuff. The minute they act outside their statute of limitations, their uniform falls off and they're liable. And the irony is, when I went to court the other day, the magistrate in his due diligence gave some court precedents, citations, R versus K. And it says clearly, and Diligent versus Smith, and these are court cases that we don't hear about. He gave them to me, and they are clearly, if the officer uniform falls off, he's not acting in his duties. Right. If you can prove that, and the key to that is Section 634 of the Police Powers and Responsibilities Act.
It's called acting under dictation.
Say again?
It's called acting under dictation from the Parliament, because police are independent office holders, and they basically say what they do. Their only obligation is to uphold the law, but to keep the Queen's peace. So when they operate, for example, what they did in COVID, they were operating under dictation from the government. So the government were dictating to them what they must do.
And the individual's responsible. So say Mel McCann, that did a federal class actions, got after the federal government. Well, she potentially was in the wrong arena, wasn't she?
True.
Right? So, and then that's sad for all the people and the amount of money she's spent, the effort she's put in for the court to come back and say her statement of claim was incomprehensible. Well, it was, because it was directed at the wrong individual. Should be at the chemist, the doctor, the actual individual. And that's what potentially I'm doing, and that's potentially why you have many viewers on here right now, Mark, because they're probably all from the Legal Service Commission office, because they're trying to set down a hearing for me at the moment, and I'm happy to have the hearing, but I've put in an appeal, and they've said it doesn't matter about the appeal, the injunction can go ahead. And my friend Jessica Hambry, that you just viewed, that got let off the murder charges, she's a witness in my case because they accused me of giving her legal advice. And I've gone back to them and I've said, look, I'm available at the end of September, but given Jess's new circumstances where a murder charge was dropped, I don't know when she's available. Sorry, I can't help you with that. And I said, but I'd like to know when you're available for the appeal. And they've gone, oh, not until the end of August, knowing that I'm available at the end of September. And I said, I find that really strange, because I've got 80-something matters in front of the court on my own, and you've got a whole bloody, whoever you want. You got a whole commission of people. You're telling me you're not available to the end of August? Because they don't want it to go ahead. So I guarantee you, half of them are all watching this right now, and they're probably half the troll.
Yeah, there's probably that, and I mean, quite possibly some of them are, going to watch later, because that's the thing, It's I'm just trying to crunch the numbers right now, but we're looking at about 700.
Well, I can say right now, anyone that
watching live, yeah,
that's a lot of trolls.
There's a good 700 watching live. I
Pursuant to
guarantee
section 40,
that.
pursuant to
What have I done
section 42 of the Acts Interpretations Act, Darryl, anyone can prosecute. Under 686, if I'm right, don't quote me on it, anyone can prosecute. So how about we start so how do we fix this? Are we allowed to start an organisation or a company or a not-for-profit or whatever and say, this is the company called Boss Hog, how can we help you? Department of Private Prosecutions, yes. If you can send us an affidavit, we can be principal to agent, agent to principal, and we can prosecute on your behalf, just like the police do. Why not?
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is you used to have the, Community Law Resource Association sort of thing that was running down in Victoria, which, I had the pleasure to see.
That was
a couple
IBAC. It's changed now, yeah.
Yeah, but something to that effect, but perhaps with a little bit more communication across the country.
I know of a body that's doing it. There's a body called the Self-Represented Litigants Association.
Oh, don't go there. Don't even go there.
Not familiar with that one.
No.
Just judging by that reaction from Heidi, I think I want to know.
Oh, you're aware? You're aware of that
David
group, Heidi?
O'Neill. What's his name?
No, it's not David. No, not that I know of.
Johnny Q.
Same character. What's his name?
Yeah, it's that other guy.
Johnny Q.
Johnny Q. And he goes to me, he said, I don't know why I've been so gifted to know more than what you do, Heidi. And my partner came into the next room and he's screaming at me going, I am so intelligent. He's on the run right now because he's on that many cases. But in general, I get what you mean. But just to say, Department of Private Prosecutions, how can I help? Because if under Section 42 anyone can prosecute, why not? We're not giving them legal advice. We're just saying, did that happen? Okay.
We live in a democratic society, so we could start up our own government body known as the Department of Private Prosecutions.
Yeah, Boss Hog. My first job was at Hog.
You are right. I mean, you are right, though. I mean, this is what we've got. This is what you're talking about.
You're not gonna. You can't send a notice and say notice to principal, notice to agent, unless you file it in their system and play it back at them. They're gonna go, yeah, hardy, whatever. They're not gonna. So when I sued, gotta be so careful. And a body corporate under Section 11, right? I sued a body corporate. They didn't even turn up. They thought it was a joke. The magistrate said, oh, could you give them a call? I said, do you normally do that? So it's very unusual. And I might have a few of them going on, right? So that's $111, $111. There's like maybe $1,500 going on there. That's a lot of money, right? So you can't even file a claim for under $1,500, an originating application. I got 12 for the same price. And there's more. Big Kev. Right? So unless we take this back and let the people know you are personally liable. You did this. You, as Darryl says, the uniform fell off you. Because most people that work in a government organisation, they would actually think, oh, no, I'm covered. It brings me back to why the council would not give you their insurance company. Is that because if they don't tell their insurance company that there's litigation going against them, they're at fault? Or is it up until a certain amount of money before they're supposed to tell their company? Because otherwise, it's a private organisation.
With its own legal team that plays a lot of games in the meantime and government backing. So at what point do they need to call that insurance company?
I'd love to tell you the games are being played, but I can't. Because probably potentially next week, like I've told you. So as far as the police prosecutions, the 7, I can talk about 7. They're not ruled as frivolous, vexatious. So I can talk about them. So I have 7 police under private prosecution at the moment. The magistrate, I don't know if I can even call her a magistrate. I could play the video online right now. You just be quiet. Stop. Darryl and Darryl have heard it. Just lunatic. She said, well, you have to do this. I'm like, no, I don't. And the barrister actually backed me up and said, yeah, well, we can't do this because you've ordered this, and potentially in the next week we'll see what happens. So next week I might be able to enlighten people exactly what I'm doing. But private prosecution is the only way to go.
Did you hear that, Betty?
Private prosecution is the only way to go, and apparently she's coming on next week.
That's the bit. Yeah, that was the bit. I was just wanting to know whether it was a threat or a promise.
I did not say that, did I?
You did. You said, I won't be able to tell you till next week.
I'll let you know next week.
I didn't say I was coming on next week. I said
no, but it was kind of implied,
Darren.
I guess.
Definitely implied.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I can actually speak about this, because you've got to be really careful whether you become, you look like you're malicious, that you've taken out this prosecution, you're going to town and telling everyone about it. It's like, if I can put it, someone contacted me on our People's page, with Sunday People's page today, and he said, you're wrong. You don't understand what the person means. And I've gone to court 3 times and they've never convicted me. And I said, well, I've heard that from a lot of people. You're talking to someone that's tried it 103 times, and I doubt very much. What did you go to court for? As you find it spurt? So, and he goes, oh, this is what happened to me. I said, but you just said you didn't enter the court. So it couldn't have been too serious that the police came around to arrest you with guns and everything to bring you with a warrant to court. So it must have been just nothing more than a misdemeanor. I haven't heard from him since. He probably got a 6-kilometre speeding ticket or something, right? I beat the system.
Yeah.
Hey, you've been to court 103 times.
I think it's more. What do you reckon, Darryl?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, heaps more.
It had to be more than that.
Can I ask that dinner you had the other night where everyone's total was 225 years?
Yeah.
You didn't have anyone round for dinner, did you?
Me, myself, and I.
Sorry, I'm being cheeky.
You're wrong.
Oh, no, don't want to upset her, Darren. Don't want to upset her.
No, Darren.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the legal showdown.
No, 103 times were potentially the same charges over and over again. And this is where, I privately prosecuted the people that are in my case at the moment, and the prosecution conferred with the QPS lawyers, barristers, whatever, and they adjourned my matter for a year. So I'm the prosecutor, they're the prosecutor, they're the defendant, I'm the defendant. So they couldn't perjure themselves.
Understand.
And that turned into a shit show.
Coming back to Heidi coming on next week, we did have a conversation about perhaps giving Heidi a regular spot every Friday, because she seems to have so
for
much
20 minutes.
Yeah, a 20-minute spot where she gives us an update on what happened in court this week. With somebody with this many court cases going on, there's always going to be some new form of content,
Absolutely.
I could be doing it from a jail cell, but anyway, Darren's got my number.
The Heidi.
Sorry, I hear they got good Wi-Fi there. We pay top dollar for it.
Well, I freaked out going into this trial. I actually ended up writing 3 numbers on my thigh because my friend Jess, who got let off the murder charge, she explained when you go into jail, You don't have your phone. You don't have anything. You can't remember anything. You need an educational computer. You get $5 a week so you can use the internet. And she explained how the whole thing went, because it took me 3.5 weeks to find her in jail before I could get her out. Because I had to have a prisoner number and everything to get her in front of the court. So being on the opposite side, where she's my Mackenzie's friend in court, I've written Darryl's number, my partner's number, and another guy who's an ex-barrister's number on my thigh. And I freaked out, as Darryl and Darren both know, because I decided I didn't want to talk to them ever again. Because I was going to jail. Because when that imminent moment is on you, it's frightening. It really is frightening.
Any wonder so many people
just got this laid back. You're not going to jail. You're not. And then, I'm like, I'm going to jail.
I just had to let her settle down.
Yeah.
There's no cell that could hold her.
No, I was upset.
That's right.
I was very upset. I was going to jail. I'm like, what the? You've told me all this stuff, and now I've got myself into this where I should have got a lawyer, and I lost my shit. So don't ever talk to me ever again, Darryl. I'm never going to talk to you again. Anyway, here we are. I'm not in jail.
Yep.
So he was right.
Yeah. You're not going to jail. They're too scared of us because we know too much, and this is the sort of information that people need to know in order to get the system to draw that big red line around you. Because when you know too much, they don't have any power anymore.
Do you reckon I already have one big red line?
Oh, you've got more than the red line.
You can imagine what had happened, though. You'd be in there teaching all the other inmates, how to sort things out, and the fucking jails would be getting cleared out pretty quickly. It'd be dangerous putting people that you guys in jail.
That's right. No,
imagine me having all that time, but I certainly wouldn't wish it upon myself, right? But that fear, which I've never had through this whole thing, 8 years of fighting this whole shit show, when I got to that moment, and it wasn't that I didn't think I was wrong. It was the corruption in the system that no matter what I said, it wouldn't have mattered. That's where I panicked. Yeah. And because I challenged so hard, kind of like Jody's saying, when you challenge, you get the trolls, you get the people. The honesty doesn't get through. Well, I think it has, and we're going to get there. But where do we change the system, Jody? It's not in the troopers, because they're not here anymore. We can't get them. Epic was the last time, and that's a whole different. That was a Mad Max movie, right? So there's a few people sitting at the tippy point of this now.
The hip pocket is where people learn their lesson, and the cost of living crisis has been, we've been talking about it for a long time, but it's been the greatest thing for waking people up, because they only give a shit about their money. So now they're out looking, they've got the month of interest. My little, I'm a single one bloke, no affiliation, do nothing. Whether you agree with everything I say or not, it's not the point. There's been 5 million views on my channel in the last 28 days.
You wouldn't be on here if I didn't agree. I told you that last night.
I know that, but what I'm saying to the people, what I'm saying is that they're feeling the pain, right, financially, and it's our time to strike while the iron's hot. We know that they'll follow whoever feels like the strongest of the leaders. But if we're actually able to start, giving them some remedy, as well as some base level information to sort of point it out. I mean, most of my shit is just regurgitated shit, sort of pumping it into them to.
It's Aaron Brockovich. It's Aaron Brockovich.
Just trying to cut the legs out of the establishment while we've got their attention long enough to do it, because the moment that election's over, 3/4 of those people go back to their lives because they only care about politics because they think that they have to. And that's probably the most dangerous thing about the electoral system in this country is that we force people that don't give a shit about it to vote. You know, so and I keep telling them,
nobody would vote Labor otherwise.
Well, I said voting isn't
Anyone.
mandatory. Voting isn't mandatory. Attendance is mandatory because if you can walk in there, draw a dick pic.
You can walk in there and that's it, and walk out.
Draw a dick pic and then walk out of there. So attendance is mandatory. So I said, you know, if you're going to, you know, and the freedom movement's fighting no vote this way, do Wayne Glue's method, do put some lines through there, all the different things in there. And I'm like, I don't think any of it really matters if I'm honest. But I just love listening to the guys like you. Guys and girls like you, I like trying to take some sort of small bit of information that I can retain and put it into some sort of content to get people excited enough so I can say, go to this group now, go to this group now. Now you've just got your eyes open a little bit, go to Know Your Rights group, go to this group and
Darren, you've got to. So Mark and I were talking about this because I was thinking about starting my own podcast, but it's not my thing. It just isn't my thing. So that's why we're having a 20-minute update on Friday because Mark's going to be my manager now.
Yeah.
And
the whole idea of the North Queensland Freedom Network is so that people can have a place to come and go, this is what I've done. You know, hey, well, we took a bit of what I heard on, you know Your Rights, and I grabbed a bit of Constitution Watch, and I grabbed a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and I put it in my magic bag and rolled it out on the table, and voila. Good shit happened.
Yeah.
Voila, here it is.
And that's the whole idea of the network, is to give people a place to be able to do that. Because you call up the mainstream media and try and explain this, and that some ditzy idiot who decided she wants to see her face on camera is going to answer and go, I don't understand what this crazy person's talking about, Clunk. You know, they're not going to give you the time.
The guy with the Batman thing at the back of the room.
Well, Heidi, as soon as JFK Jr. takes off his Darryl O'Brien mask and gets my mate back, Darryl O'Brien, we're going to, as you know, start the Constitution Watch podcast, and you're going to
see how he led into that, Darryl. Yeah, right, yeah, Darren. Okay, I wasn't born yesterday, mate. Okay.
You weren't born yesterday.
I need to finish designing some stuff for that podcast too.
That's interesting. I was born on a Friday, but it wasn't last Friday.
So that's been happening for a while. So it's going to happen?
Yes. Yeah,
cool.
That's
so
right.
you can work in with Mark because I really don't want to start my own channel because I'm really shit at it. I'm happy to come on.
Ooh.
All right, I got all the tech shit sorted out here.
So Jody does a great job. I don't really have an audience because my shit's so fucking complicated. Darryl even, like, he sees my number and he has to think twice before he answers it. I'll spend 2 hours telling you what I know you do, Darryl. Don't you worry.
Hey, it took me 2 days to convince him to come onto the podcast this week.
It did not. Did not.
Me 3 days.
At least your people know what they're going to get.
I said, Darryl, listen, can you listen to my last thing? It's 300 pages long. And he goes, okay. Right. And he does listen to it. And then at the end, he goes, oh, that sounds good. We'll see what happens. Because I know you do, Darryl, because it's a lot.
No, but I have picked you up on some points too. I do listen. I have.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So Darryl doesn't like do the piss in the pocket. He's like, you're wrong here, you're wrong there. And that's how you learn.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
The
Darryl's
devil's in the
not
detail.
sending me down like, yeah, you're right to go to court. He's like, no, don't do that. Don't say that. Pull it back together. This is what this is. Shorten it up. It's a bit long-winded. Take out that 100 pages and just bring it back to 4 sentences.
Yep.
Absolutely. You should see the look on judges' faces when you're walking with a trolley with about 4 stacks of paper.
I did.
But
I walked in with a great stack.
You got to keep it simple, you know. You got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
But you are doing that, and you're having success, and that's the result of the devil in the detail, and you've been digging that out. And
The barrister said, I think Miss Ward's doing a forensic analysis of the evidence. And I said, what's that mean? Well, I'm listening to it. Every bit of it. Is that called forensic, is it? Because I'm very, how you going, mate? Like you, Jody. Well, like all of us, right? I'm like, really? Okay, then. Rightio. I don't walk in there and go, oh, blah, blah. I do walk in there and go, oh, please, this is the court for the record. My name is blah, blah, blah.
You've given me a wonderful idea, though, Darryl. I think one day, or the next time I'm called into court, I'm getting a fucking shitty old Coles trolley that rattles and fucking, has a bung wheel.
Oh, you'll be trolleyed then if you're pissed.
And I'll load it up with like empty boxes of A4 Reflex or something, just for show. And just open, pull out all the boxes, grab the one at the bottom, and pull out one fucking sheet of paper.
And then you can go, I've been trolleyed.
Mm.
I've been trolleyed.
Yep, that's a good one.
I did it with a friend once. I was on Burleigh Heads, Gold Coast. It's that hill. I was really bored, probably a little bit inebriated. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And he goes, I'll jump in the trolley. It's a shopping trolley. So I was holding on to it. He's probably listening because he's watching. Anyway, Mr. Simon Hexter. He goes, don't let go. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I weed myself and let go of the trolley. And he went down Burleigh Heads. And he kept going. I'm like, shit. Hit the pole, hit a car. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, I reckon I just got trolleyed.
There you go.
Life is very funny. What did Jody? You said something to me last night. Oh, Justice. My dog's found my Temu hairbands that I bought today. A whole packet. He's found them and he's eating them all. So you said to me, you go from 0 to nothing. Or what was that you said last night about that we're all sometimes stupid and sometimes not? Do you know what I mean?
I drift in and out of my own conversation, Heidi. I find myself boring to listen to sometimes.
You go from 0 to sometimes you're this person, sometimes you're that person.
Yeah, 0 to hero.
I can't remember the context of it. Sorry.
Was that the recent video? Because I watched the one. It was about a half-hour spiel, and you kind of, went through quite a few different sort of points of view, which I thought was really interesting. The way you'd kind of, well, is it this? Is it that? Is it this Jasara stuff? Is it MAGA? What the fuck is going to work?
I was just bashing the white hats out of the MAGA movement because I just keep said to him, look, I don't mind what we believe in. I don't even mind where we're going if we're walking on the same path together. But for Christ's sake, the one thing I've been gifted with is a memory. And if you're gonna keep shifting your story every time I come back to you, and the only answer is 5D chess or something along those lines, because we were talking about bringing all the manufacturing back in one big mad rush. And I'm just like, you can't have 50 years of sell out of manufacturing and bring it all back in one week. It's not it's going to have an exponential price rise through cost, demand. So I said, where's the actual infrastructure to build that back up to a place where we have some protection in between? But I can't remember.
I think the dollar's going to change. Don't know why I'm saying that, but potentially I have inside information. It's going to change. It's absolutely going to change. I got the hiccups.
But this is what I was this is what I was talking about, right? So this is a large part of that MAGA movement has been the part of the freedom movement where they've been crowing for BRICS, right? The Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance with the Gasara.
191 countries, yeah.
Right. So they've been crowing for that for a fair bit. And saying the whole way that Trump's working behind the scenes with Xi Jinping and Putin. And now that he's got back into power over there, the same people are crowing that he's he's sticking it to China with 125% tariff. And I was like, come on, guys, like I'm really good at memorizing what you've been saying, and you're not even saying the same thing anymore. So which one is it? Because, I mean, look, it's all popcorn stuff. I'm not really interested in it, but.
Well, I can say something. If you read, so I'm a 70%, 65%, 70% Trump. I read 3 books a week. Read his book, The Art of the Deal.
Yeah, good book.
About how he took over, Holiday Inn. He's just rinsing and repeat.
Yeah.
It's all bluff. The whole shit show's bluff. So without getting too intense about the tariffs, or it's the art of the deal.
Oh, definitely. And you can see that's blowing a lot of people's minds because they're used to politicians doing politician things.
The yen dollar.
He's bringing in that hardcore business and just running things as a business would, which kind of makes sense considering that, all the countries are basically businesses anyway. And we've got this fake puppet show called politics.
Well, you have to question why the dollar over here is worth this much and the dollar over in this country, and why we have this exchange rate where the yen is 26 cents to the dollar and the US dollar is 75%. Why? Is there? So what he's doing with Paris is trying to bring the dollar. The dollar is the dollar. Doesn't matter what country, it's the same dollar.
Well, all I keep saying is that we have to be doing something, right? It doesn't matter. I don't need a politician to tell me that it's safe to eat fries when I'm going through Popeye's chickens because it's cooked in tallow, right? I need to know that I'm making those decisions for myself because I can pick up the label and read it, right? So I just keep going back to them saying it doesn't matter what they're saying they're doing. It's got nothing to do with us. Our feet have to be moving ourselves. Otherwise, we get suffer from analysis paralysis.
You can believe in anything but row your boat.
That's right. Like just get up and go for a walk outside, and you don't need Maha movement to be making decisions for you because you're just getting lost in the 5D chess or the art of the deal. It's like you can make yourself healthy again. We can do that through self-governance, right? Like that's what I was talking with Mark before. I said I gave up alcohol 2 years ago just as a bit of a test for a month or something, but everybody was saying that they're trying to kill us with the jabs and they're trying to kill us with spraying stuff and they're trying to kill us with the food, and I was like, well, I'm doing a pretty good job by constantly drinking alcohol, so I'll get rid of that for as a start. I'll get rid of that and just see.
Oh, now you're going on a whole nother movement of self-health. There's
yeah, I know, but I'm like, I had to start trying to test myself, right? Because at the end of the day, this whole thing is about me testing me, right? We're talking about people getting the jab and being disconnected from their soul source creator energy, right? And
hang on a minute, Jody. If you told a Jehovah's Witness right now that you decided to move to a different religion, you can't change people that way.
No.
What you do in your life is great.
I think what Jody's saying there is very relevant, particularly seeing I quite often make the point that people should be listening to Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. If you want to make the change, you better start with yourself. Yeah, and I think that's a great great example.
Away, like,
I could turn around and say, if you want to change yourself, learn the entire fucking legislation like Darren and Darryl have.
Well, that's one thing, but sometimes people got to start with baby steps.
Well, how's that going to help not drinking alcohol to save the fucking?
Well, because I'm too fucking blind to read the fucking words. I stop drinking; it's all fucking blurry.
I'm not having a go at you, Jody, but we're not.
No, I'm not. I don't take offense to that because Jason Miles said to me when he was talking about it, he was on the alcohol free for a while, and he said. We talked about coffee, and I said, I'm trying to reduce my coffee as well. And he said, he did the same thing as what you're saying. We shouldn't have to get rid of that. And I said, no, I'm only ever asking my body why it thinks it needs something.
Right? How healthy does Jason fucking look?
Yeah, I know, but why? I'm always asking, why does my body need? What does it need? Right? So it's because it's a question for government. So why do I need the rent assistance? Why do I need the end of the tax year money? Like what is it that my personal indoctrination thinks that I need something all the time, because that's what makes me servant to put my hand out and say, please sir, can I have some more? I mean, I do culture training for on my board to teach people preventative and mitigating strategies in risk basis, right? But I do the same thing for for people. Why does my body, my mind, my heart yearn for something that I possibly already have the ability for me? And so that's all I've been going through questioning. It's like, why do I need to supplement everything? Why do I need to escape things? People do drugs, people gamble, people, cheat, whatever it is that they escape. What is going on at the core of my heart and my trauma that needs that, right? And so what decisions am I making that needs the government to give me pharma medication, that needs to give me free Are You OK help? What is it that they need to do? That's all I'm saying. It's not individually on alcohol or drugs or anything. It's what am I ignoring in my own body, in my own heart, that's causing me to be at the mercy of somebody else's shit, because I've got to keep going back to them, like a Stockholm syndrome.
That's a whole different over there to what we came on.
I think it makes perfect. It's just another way of looking at it. Like, for instance, you've got this scenario where, hang on, I have this particular legal scenario as well. What do you do? What you decisions are before you. Do I go, I can't be fucking bothered? Okay, so why am I saying I can't be bothered? What do I need to sort of change to go, well, I can be bothered, I should save myself, for example. And whether it's a beer, whether it's a court case, whether it's why am I still in this fucking job that I hate? Pick an example of your life. The same methodology seems to apply, I think.
And this is
I gave up footy, right? So I gave up. I loved everything about football, played it my whole life, and because I was sitting there with the beer, when I gave up the beer, I started watching the football, and I was really bored really quickly, right? Because I wasn't watching it with beer, so I was like, I started asking my daughter what she was doing, and I'd say, "Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing?" Because couldn't even concentrate. So I haven't watched football for 18 months as well. Because I was always gambling on the football to make the football more exciting, so I haven't gambled on anything, right? And so now I spend my Fridays doing these shows because I freaking love not only the education but the entertainment value, because I replace that. Otherwise, I'd be probably still drinking the beer, watching the football like my friends were. So I'm not talking about the alcohol. I'm just talking about the questions that I ask myself of why wouldn't I study? Why didn't I have time to do the study that you guys do, right? Why haven't I got that time? Well, because I was watching 2 or 3 football games a weekend, so there's good 4 hours wasted that is now utilised trying to learn. So people give me excuses all day, every day, why they can't go to a rally or why they can't do a course or why they can't do anything. And I'm asking people, if you think that it's only going to be the government that's going to save you or Trump, or whoever,
No, I agree, Jody. You bang on.
No.
It's amazing how many people I've known over the last 25, 30 odd years since I've been going, what the fuck is wrong with this world? Sort of waking up around that teenage point, just going, why are we doing this? Hang on, Pink Floyd said this. Why is everybody so stupid? Hang on, Pantera pointed it out here. Biohazard pointed it out there. Metallica said it here. How the fuck is everybody so fucking stupid? Like, the answers are right here. It's written in this book and that book. It's in that movie. It's like, it's all around us. Why can't people see it? But, for that 30-year period, then we come across this COVID scenario. Then all of a sudden, here's the prime opportunity. People are waking up in droves, and those who have been awake for a long time suddenly start pulling out the bag of fucking excuses for why they couldn't make a 800-kilometer adventure to Canberra or something. It's just like, hang on, I come all the way from fucking North Queensland. It cost me an arm and a leg to get to fucking Canberra. Why can't you do it? You're a hell of a lot closer than me, and you're far more. I know a lot of people who be standing there at the highest cliff, just fucking screaming to nobody. Oh, we need to do this. We need to do this. It's all fucked. But when the moment came, motivation didn't seem to be there.
They say that the best players are often found in the grandstand, and I'm telling you that social media is all about that. So,
I think you're right. Especially coming from a family where the old man was so into his football that, like, he was actually at the MCG where the security threatened to remove him if he didn't calm down, and he doesn't drink. That's just how much he loves his footy. Like, like when I took the kids around there for the first time and his footy was on, he was screaming and carrying on. The kids were scared. No, like, what the fuck? What's wrong with Grandpa? Don't worry, he's just trying to change the course of history through the television set, you know?
Yeah.
And probably just as well he doesn't drink, because I can imagine there'd be a few beer can shaped holes in the TV, I reckon.
Well, and if you replace that TV of the football yelling at the screen with the 1984 Big Brother scenario, where they all sit in the cinema and they seethe and they scream and they
15
shout,
minutes
you know,
ahead.
like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing, isn't it? The proles are doing exactly what they said that they'd be doing, which was, you know, thinking that it's just an insurmountable task for the average Aussie, and that's like I said, you know, you guys, the knowledge you guys have got, that is not average, right? But you know, I can build I just built a 400-meter fence here on my farm. I did it on my own. I didn't have to hire anything. So every person in this community, in this country, has you know, a skill set that we can use, because that's what community was. Not everybody can understand every single asset of it, because we wrote the Constitution to be able to outsource the governing of our country, so that we didn't have to die of boredom with the day-to-day doldrums of managing the affairs of a big business like this country. But unfortunately, they've taken advantage of that, and we don't even know it. So, like you guys say, if you don't know your rights, you have none. So, I didn't have any. So here I am.
No, I'm hearing it. Totally agree. I think that's one of the problems, I guess, we face with the legal scenario, though, is like it's kind of you're forced in a lot of ways to go, I need legal representation, because you haven't been given the knowledge, you don't specifically know, especially if the court case is in a couple of weeks and you've never watched any of this sort of shit. The majority of people are just like, what do I do? You know, that they've been disempowered, or they were never given a little power stick in the first place.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, all right, you've got the right to defend yourself, but when you're walking into a foreign land almost, and with a foreign language, and you've got no idea how you could even do that. It's a baffling scenario. I mean, again, for me, you've just said, well, I've just built a fence around the farm. I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm guessing I need a hammer and some nails at some point, but that's not my thing. But I know that I can easily go, oh, hey, mate, Jody, you reckon you can help me out with a fucking fence? You told me the other day you knocked up a pretty good one. You know, I've got some beers around here. Maybe we can, you know, you can teach me a thing or two, and we can get that sorted. But when we're dealing with something as complex as law, and Darryl's been there for like 25 years, you know, working on this shit, and you're just like, wow, I don't have 25 years to deal with this shit. My court case is tomorrow.
Well, I have 25 years in the future ahead of me to you know, I'm looking at Darryl, and all I've got to do is get a bit of grey hair and slump down a little bit further, and I can see myself in the future, because I'm going to do, you know, you trailblazers have obviously made, you know, forged a path back through that forest that had overgrown from, you know, from people not walking it often enough, and people like me are going to follow through that path a lot easier because of the people that are on this call, you know. So it's going to be a lot easier for us. We're not going to use it as a tourist route, but we are going to take the opportunity to, you know, walk down the paths that you cut with machetes through the thick shit, doing what you've been doing.
I'm going to jump in now. I've been really patient. We need to find a solution.
Yes.
There's no what your trauma was, what this was. Right now, we're at the crutch. We have to find a solution. Explaining to people what this is. They're not on your team, even if you finally get through that big whiteboard that you had and you get one person out of your group. Sorry, Jody. One. It's about us at the tipping point of this, holding those responsible. And I'm pretty sure we're in good company that we can do that, and we're doing it. Jody, you don't know, and we can't actually speak about a lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes.
I don't need to know.
It's good. It's on a need-to-know basis anyway.
That's what I'm saying. I don't need to know. I have faith that good people are doing good things.
Yeah, well, but so there is we still have
But it's
to
a
work
fair
it out.
point, need to know basis. Do I need to know the ins and outs of fucking intense corporation law? You know, if the court case is nothing to do with that sort of thing. I guess it is a need to know basis, and that's where your learning bricks are. It's the same as, well, I've got a box of Lego here to build the Millennium Falcon. I don't need the instruction book for the Taj Mahal.
Yeah,
Okay, Darryl, why don't you answer that?
We didn't read. We didn't sit down and read, you know, every single law back to back. Okay.
No.
Certain
We're doing
things
the best we
happened.
can.
Certain things happened that compelled us to do it.
That's right.
Okay, step by step. Okay, and that's where you've got to start at the beginning and step by step, depending on your journey. Your journey reflects on, you know, how you apply yourself. You know, if it's a traffic matter, it's a traffic matter. If it's a murder charge, it's a murder charge, and they're two completely, you know, different areas of law.
Yeah,
completely. And this is why lawyers, okay, and this is why Heidi could never be a lawyer, because lawyers specialize just in one little field. Okay, Heidi's intelligence is far greater than that of a lawyer, where you can only just, you know, you're actually departmentalized into one subject matter of law, and that's the problem with most lawyers. They're compartmentalized into this one area. So I'm a probate lawyer, or I'm a criminal lawyer, or, you know, whatever it happens to be.
I'm not a lawyer, just to clarify.
I just pointed that out.
Just in case the legal service.
I pointed that out because lawyers are compartmentalized. They only focus on one area of law, and your mind's far greater than that to just focus in one area. So
that's what we've had the ability.
Never be a lawyer.
Darryl's trying to speak. His voice is not so well. Come on, Darryl. Come
What's
on
that, RFK?
Come on in, Darryl.
That's where we've looked at the broader picture. So we've looked at the whole body of law. We've looked at the whole body of law, and we're able to cherry pick so that when we confront the general public, we can sort of go, so many years ago we dealt with this particular case, and this is what happened. And when you look at case law, that's what it basically falls back to. So case law will sometimes bring other matters in order to satisfy what the ruling's got to be. But law covers all facets of our life, and if anything, what we have seen more than anything is government who have been on the periphery of everyone's lives, looking for an excuse to come in and regulate our lives. And we saw that more than anything through COVID. We saw them come in a political sense.
If anyone thinks I'm doing anything crazy, I've got a 7-month-old puppy trying to get my attention.
All right, we got it. I just mute your microphone every now and then when I hear all the clatter.
Yeah, he's just eating everything. Sorry.
Yeah, there's an act. There's an act that you can impose there. It's called the Obnoxious Dogs Act.
You are in charge. You're in charge. He's got a fluorescent ball.
But yeah, Darryl raises a good point.
Stop.
Darryl raises a very good point in regards to case law, because no matter what your situation, no matter what's happened, okay, there's always someone in the past that exact situation has happened to, and normally, or
they're part of,
and ordinarily you can find a case that reflects what's happened to you, and when I say ordinarily, pretty much it's very rare that you can't find a case.
Correct.
And so you can look at that case and see how the court ruled, and there's an expectation that you will get the same outcome as that person with the same circumstances, okay? Because this is how the courts work, okay? There can't be arbitrary ruling where, they Jody and I are both charged with the same thing, and Jody.
But you only get that ruling, Darren, when you get all the way up.
Well, possibly. It depends. It depends on how you argue it. present it, and this is the problem. You know, you've got to be able to articulate these arguments in such a way that the court can understand them. You know, I've watched people go into the court and they go, point 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? And the court go, no.
Can we get back to how we're going to
the
solve
Constitution
this
and the marbo of it, no.
Yeah. It's the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Can we just get back to, without going, because you guys, we could speak for hours. Can't wait to have a bonfire. We'll speak for hours. We're friends. Jody's a new guest. How do we fix this now? Jody's trying to educate the average guy. The three of us.
You need to get the minor parties into Parliament. That's how you do it.
Well, I'm not voting.
You need to knock out the two-party preferred system. That's how you do it.
I think that's
you want change. You want proper change. You need to knock out the two-party preferred system. This is the last election where that can happen. There's laws coming in to stop the minor parties coming after this election. This is our
Darryl, what do you say about that?
Well, the minor parties have been the first attack was the major attack was when Albanese won the last election, and the first thing he did, he took away the legal advisors to the minor parties. See, normally you get each member of the Senate gets 7. They can have up to 7 staff.
Barristers and lawyers, yeah.
So you can have a chief of staff, you can have a secretary, and then you can have the rest of them being legal advisors. And
but he abolished that. They have
he
one
stopped
each.
that, and he said only one legal advisor to each of the minor parties.
And Rennick's only got one. I know. I met him, and he's not a lawyer. He's not a barrister. He's not a very good one.
But the surprising thing was none of these minor parties objected. None of them knew how to object. They don't know the process under the Constitution when you're sitting in that house, what you can and what you cannot do. None of them know this stuff. And this is where they all fail miserably. They fall back on their legal advisors who are part of the problem and the bureaucrats, and they rely on what they tell them rather than picking up the bloody book and reading it themselves. I remember when I was in the Parliament with Cullerton and Malcolm Roberts, we called him the jockey. And he was sort of...
Yeah, because he's a man of tall stature.
Yeah, he was sort of bouncing around, and because, you know, for the first time, someone in his party, the legal advisors, weren't lawyers, and we were talking about that broad spectrum of knowledge about the law. And we were saying things that the Constitution was saying, and he was just mind-blown. He couldn't get his head around this thing called the Constitution. And I sort of said to him, mate, have you got a copy of the Constitution in your office? And he said, nah. So I went down to the bookshop in Parliament House, and I said, can I have a copy of the Constitution? And they said, oh, wow, that's a strange request. So I've gone into the back, and they've blown the dust off this Constitution, and he's come out with one copy, and he's put it on the desk, and he said, is that what you want? And I said, yeah. And he said, do you want anything else? Yeah. And I said, well, you can order about another 10 of those. And he's like, well, that's been sitting there for that long, it's collected dust. I said, all right. So I grabbed it, I took it up to Malcolm Roberts' office, and he was like a kid with a new toy. he was that excited about it. Every day he was coming in going, oh, have a look what this says. And it's like, wow, you know, I believe you shouldn't get into that house unless you have a bloody good knowledge of what that book says, because that's the people's instruction manual on what you can or cannot do in Parliament. And, you know,
I have the board game. It's on your way. I think it's in the post, Darryl. The board game's on its way.
The board game's on its way. And this is what's really missing, is that knowledge, that basic knowledge of where their powers lie within the Parliament.
How Parliament's born, what the upper lower house is, who is who in the zoo.
But the thing is, like, just on when it comes to passing the law in Parliament, and this is what really hit home with Malcolm Roberts, was, hang on, do you realise, have you looked at section 51 of the Constitution and the 39 subsections? And he sort of looked at me strange. So I'll look that up. And he didn't understand it. And I said, well, there's your heads of power. So when you guys go and pass a law, or you've been requested, you'll get the bill across your bench into your office. And the first thing you should look up is, okay, well, where's the head of power for no head of power? What are we doing? And this is what the people don't even know. They just think, oh, the Parliament can make any law they bloody well like. Well, no, they can't. They're restricted.
No, they can't.
And there are restrictions built through the English law system as well. So the first thing you should do, and the first thing you should test any member of Parliament on, is their knowledge of those heads of power, because they're there to sort of pass laws or amend laws or repeal laws or do whatever. They're there to express the will of your constituent in your area. And if your constituent knows what the law is more than they do, we got a problem. And this is where we're at today. We've got a whole bunch of politicians who have no idea
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And this is
Rex just said that at the opportune moment, actually. Ring up your local MPs. They don't know anything. Perfect.
The Bruce Highway's getting $6 billion worth of funding.
Yeah, that's fuck all. Like, the Bruce Highway is the ultimate state of Queensland. Like, there's this amazing patch here in Townsville. So
there's 4 states of Queensland. There's
the holes in the road,
Federated Queensland and Queensland.
But then you've got, what the High Court.
We don't even have an upper house in Parliament in Queensland, so
that's a problem.
Say it, just a shit show.
But then you've got to look at what the High Court has and the power that the High Court have. So it doesn't matter what these idiots in Parliament say and what laws they bring in.
Lydia Thorpe.
If that law doesn't sit in the Constitution, then your High Court is your avenue to take that law into that court and say, we want a declaration out of this court to prohibit that piece of legislation because it conflicts with our Constitution. And the High Court, with the proper blinkers on, when you know how to communicate in the High Court, they go, yeah, you're right, and strike the law out. When did they do that last time? So Darren does a presentation on this, and this was a case in October 23, Vanderstock versus State of Victoria. And the High Court threw out a piece of legislation which was going to be worth millions and millions of dollars to each of the states. So this is the power that government have, and not even our politicians know that. And I'm sure that, that if anything, the courts are what the system fears more than anything. So they try and put as much control through the courts as possible. But when we start using the courts to make them accountable,
that's right. Private prosecution, 111.
That's when you separate the court system from the rest of government. That's what's important. You've got to make
all liable. A whole lot of them.
And this is the key. This is where we can grab back some power by having that knowledge, going to our politicians and saying, hey, mate, we need you to keep an eye on what that instruction manual, so you know what you can pass. So when you vote in the House, when you're voting for a particular law, have you actually got a head of power for that? Can you do that?
Where'd you get the authority? Yeah.
They stand up to us and say, hey, listen, you can't break that rule, or you must do this, or you must do that. Well, what to the politicians? Where's their rule book? Right. The rule book is that Constitution. And unless we know how to use it against them, then they're running amok. They're out of their paddock. There is no fence. They're just making up these laws as it goes along. And this is where the problem is. And now
but the opportunity of defeating the enemies provided by
we're at this situation now where they're saying there's hatred speech laws, and if you hold a Nazi symbol up in the middle of Caulfield, or then you could go to jail for a year. This is the sort of stuff we need to utilise and throw back in front of these politicians and say, mate, and especially our attorneys general, and say, where the hell did you get the power to bring this rubbish in? Because all the punters will do, and all the propaganda machine, the media will do, is uphold whatever the politicians are saying, and that's not how the show is supposed to work. It's like you're in a foreign country, like we're in a socialist regime, and it's only because we, the punters, have no bloody idea what they can.
So everyone's acquiesced.
And we accept it, and because it's accepted, it carries on until some smart cookie gets up and goes, hang on, blows the dust off this old book called the Constitution, flicks his way through it and goes, hang on, they can't do this, that and the other. How am I going to stop it? I know how I'm going to stop it. I look at this and go, hey, the courts can make the difference here and take it into court. And this is how you bring.
That's the only way to do it.
It's the only way to do it. And the court system, I spent 25
I don't know
years.
about the only way, because, Darren was straight up, let's get some independents and some minor parties and crush the two
but
parties.
still, if you bring them on
Which
a party,
circumvents a lot of those elements. But Darryl's also correct in the sense that it at least keeps everything on track, where you use the courts. So it's a multi-pronged thing. And I think this is where a lot of people are struggling, for all over the places. Oh, we just want our one great answer to fall from the sky and smack me in the face and solve all my fucking problems. But show me anything in society that has, this is the one size fits all, because there's always somebody that it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So we need all these elements of society clearly exist because some elements are necessary. It's pretty easy to say we don't need this, we don't need that, and pretty much we look in government, and as Darryl is pointing out, and it's pretty easy to see that there's a hell of a lot of rorting and pillaging going on, particularly within government, wasteful spending, shit we don't fucking need, just to keep people distracted perhaps, or just to funnel money from one place to another. But we need lots of different things. We need lots of points of views. You pointed out before, Jody, somebody knows how to build a fence. Old mate over here knows how to build a nuclear reactor. I figured out how to.
I've got to go to the toilet.
You go. So I don't think there's any one fix-all scenario, but lots of good people with various different ideas coming at it to go, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. Hey, wow, we built a new society.
The problem, that's what I've been saying, Buddy, is I've been saying to people, because they're all talking about voting, and I'm like, cool. So the knowledge is the power, right? So if all of these people that are putting themselves up to run as candidates, if I've been just giving them some basic questions, things that I've been learning from you guys, right? I've been just saying, if these guys don't know their constitution that they're going in there to represent on your behalf, because it's you that gave that power to them to represent you by that constitution. If they don't know it, then it's just popularity. This is just a popularity contest, and you just have to say popular things. Now, popular things sound great, but if they're no more independent, small party, major party, if they're no more pinned in getting back to where the legislation gave them the power to represent us in the first place, then it's just a popularity contest, and I could win that, and I'm a moron in terms of the law. So that's why I've been sort of saying to them as well, is like, okay, if you want to vote, that's great. You do you, but you need to make sure that you know what you're asking them to represent you on behalf of, because otherwise you don't know, they don't know, so you won't know that they don't know. And then when we get this same bullshit, $5 back sort of stuff, I don't give a shit about $5 or $10, in these policy talks. I want to know how you're going to make it right, because it's clear through Rod Cullerton being in there, that there's a lot of people been doing a lot of work to try and get us back on path of that contribution, and it hasn't been very successful so far. Although there's a lot going on, but that we don't see. So, but does that make sense? Like, there's lots of different avenues to go at this, but we still have to know. We still have to have the knowledge first. That we, the people who are giving our power away to someone, have to understand what it is we're giving away.
So, Jody, I think you might have seen in your own life, which probably has surprised you, people still need a leader.
Yes.
They need someone to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
But if someone wants me to tell me to build a fence, right, on their house, they need to tell me. They need to know where they want the fence. They need to know what the fence is made out of, and they need to know what sort of budget they've got for it. So then the fencer comes in and does the job that he's been hired to or given the power to do for them, right? Because the people have to have that understanding. So
imagine being the fencer that turned up and said, "Oh, I don't know what sort of fence. If it's long fences,
I know that. But what I'm saying is, if the government, we're very good at blaming the government for not knowing the Constitution, but it's our power that we gave to them. So I'm the idiot that has been voting all these years without understanding it myself. We have to understand what it is that we're giving to them with this power, and that's the only reason I've started on this journey of trying to learn it myself.
And you're right. You're 100% right. But I'm going to go back on topic. How do we change it? Darren,
I thought that's what we were discussing from a multi-point of view. Like, Jody's got a whiteboard. I've got a whiteboard. It's very two-dimensional, but we're dealing with a three-dimensional problem. I'm not even going to get into the 5D chess shit.
Ask each one, Darren, how would you change if you had a wizard's wand right now and said, what I'd love to do?
Okay. How have we become in this situation that we're in? Because of attacks from within. Because this is what they do. They go straight into the parliament, and they take over from within. Okay, and there's many old sayings about this, about the enemy within. Okay, you can't deal with the enemy from in, but you can deal with the standing army type stuff. Okay, and that's why I'm saying you need these minor parties. Okay, that's the only way to do it.
Your answer is vote for the minor parties.
Just hold on. Going into court, and beating someone or privately prosecuting someone does not change the system of government. Okay? And I understand what you're saying, and that is a remedy for a particular issue, but it's not the issue that you're talking about, which is the big issue, the big picture. How do we fix everything? It's not going to court. It's from within the parliament. It's the only way.
I'm not talking about utopia. It's just how we change this new world order. UN, Unidroit.
UN?
Unidroit. UN, Doctrine of Discovery.
Okay. Once again, it's from within the parliament. It's the only way to do it.
But they're not part of the UN. They're not part of Unidroit.
Well, they are.
Well, they are and they aren't.
So we are definitely part of Unidroit. We're a member of Unidroit, 100%.
Yeah. We discussed that last week.
So let me ask you a question. You've raised this issue about Unidroit, and I assume that you don't want to be part of Unidroit being an Australian. Well, how can you change that? Not by going into the courts, from within the parliament. It's the only way to fix that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about.
But Unidroit just got dissolved under the Doctrine of Discovery.
You're talking about things at an international level. The UN, Unidroit, okay? They can only be dealt with from within the parliament, not within the courts.
Yeah, it's the Attorney General. That's it. Because the Attorney General had signed that treaty. And this is how you fix that problem. And it's the parliamentary system that we need our parliamentarians to become aware of. The minor parties are the answer as long as they become aware of what that constitution obligates them to.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
And once you've got that, then you put, and they're able to stand up to the propaganda machine and to the people in Australia and lay out exactly what the law provides. That's when the two-party system collapses. And one of the first things you would raise is, well, where in this constitution is there any authority for the Labor Party or the Liberal Party when they win a vote? So
or act under the same OBN number.
Or where in the constitution does it grant the Labor Party, because they have a majority win in the election, where in the constitution does it say that that party can now govern? And there isn't. It's not in there. And where in this constitution is there such an entity as a prime minister? Well, it's not there. There's nothing about a prime minister. And you sort of go, now they're very
Why do we have a prime minister?
But that's not there to answer. It's a matter of exposing
to lead the government.
The little man behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. You pull back that curtain, and here's this doting old man who's been bluffing you the whole time and been spieling this bullshit, and people have fallen for it. And it's just that obvious and that quick. It's over for their whole system. It just collapses. Their whole house of cards collapses. Yep. And then the people go, well, what the hell are we going to do now?
But do you think the lower parties, do you think the Pauline Hansons, the Rennicks, the now Patriot parties that are coming on board now, do you believe they're acting in that way? Sure, Jason Miles and people like that, yes. But do you think these other people are acting that way?
I'm sure once they're put in the spotlight, they will, because they realise that they are part of that change, and the people are looking to the
to vote or not vote.
But it's about, like, when you go to the US, most people know what their constitutional rights are and what government can or cannot do. You come here, and most people don't even know there's a constitution.
Well, until the yes and no vote, the referendum, no one even had heard of the constitution.
And this is the problem. And the way they covered that up was compulsory enrolment and compulsory attendance at the voting booths at the time of an election, because it put people in fear every time it come to an election. Oh, shit, if I don't go and tick that
$221 fine,
I'm going to get a fine, and I don't want that. So for that 6 weeks leading up to an election, I'm going to look at the red, blue or green team and go, I'll just tick that box and get out of here. Where you look at it in the UK or you look at it in the US, where it's voluntary, and those people will be passionate. The majority of people will have someone in their family who's passionate Democrat.
Imagine taking away the fine in Australia. How many people do you reckon will vote, Jody? I'll give it to you.
A lot less, but at least the percentage of who voted would actually possibly be passionate about what it is that they're voting for.
And that's it.
Exactly. You've got to realise that 2 elections ago, the two-party preferred system lost about 16% of the vote. Then last election, they lost around about 17% of the vote. Okay, they are crapping themselves, because if that percentage keeps on going, if we get around that 15 to 17% loss again for the two-party preferred system, bang, the miners get to over 50%. Okay, that's what they're dreading. Now, if that can continue on.
I just don't believe that even if that was the truth, it'll all be rigged.
Yeah, but what they'll do, what the propaganda machine will do, they will then advertise to the people in Australia, oh, we've got a hung parliament.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
hang on.
That's what
Where
I'm
in the
saying.
Constitution, where in the Constitution does it talk about a hung parliament? It doesn't.
Nowhere.
Nowhere. So it's all about fear. Come on, uphold this two-party system, you know, because
We've
this
got a
is how
hung
the
parliament. We've got to
system's
go back to what we knew that we had.
and this is we have to break away from this fear that these political systems put in place
There you
in
go,
order to shore
40%.
up their existence.
So you can see it's going up. Now, Heidi, you've been asking us, and you
The
don't.
thing is, where
you
is this
don't-
coming from? Where
Heidi,
is these?
you don't believe that that from within the parliament is the answer. You tell us what's the answer then.
No, I'm just asking where the polls come from now. Isn't voting private? So where are the polls coming from? Where's their legal right to ask people who you're going to vote for?
Oh, it's voluntary.
So where are these polls coming from?
Well, they're professional poll organisations.
Yeah,
they
it's
just
from
put it
the
out there.
public. Anderson versus Commonwealth. Everyone that works for the government is the public. So they've all been told who to vote for and what to vote for. Darren, your question, what's my answer? Well, I don't have a crystal ball, right? And I see people like why Jody's here tonight, just a humble guy, giving it a go, trying to explain to people how waking people up.
Yep.
In a country town. I see us on a different level. I've evolved to a different level. So I went from 158A to that in the background. Yeah. So I've evolved. What is my answer? The only answer to me is holding them all personally liable. And
So
if
you're
they have
talking about
immunity,
malfeasance of office is what you're talking about.
no, there's plenty. Just I could sit here all day and work out which one under $111.70. If it's a bit like being, I'll just explain it. Your son doesn't pick up his towel off the floor. He gets out of the shower and he leaves. All right, mate, you're going to be grounded or you're going to lose. So I used to have a point system with my son. You did all your jobs, you get this, you get that, you get an A on your report card, you get $50, you get a B, you get $20, you get C, you get nothing. And we don't go any further than that because if he got less than that, he's not going to be penalised, right? So there's sort of like, when you give a kid a little star on their back of their hand, they're like, oh, I'm important, right? So how do we change this? If the people that work for the government believe they're all protected. The dog guy down the beach that ran after me the other day going, your dog doesn't have a tag. And he stood in front of my car. And I said, I'm pretty sure my car's going to beat you, mate. And he's like, you have to talk to me. I said, I don't have to talk to you. I've got the right to remain silent. And he said, do you know what you are? You're a fucking bitch. And I said, you're a dog watcher that has no authority, so I'm okay with that. And I drove off. So where do we put these people in their place that they actually have no authority?
See, but you're concentrating on a guy from a council in regards to a dog.
No, I'm just saying, anyone that works for the council,
not being on a lead.
Anywhere,
We're talking about.
Can I do mine?
Yeah.
Yep.
All I've heard in the last 5 years is everyone say that the answer to this problem has to be exactly the same one. And I hear you guys doing what you're doing, and I think every one of you need to do your own thing, your own way with your own group, because this is such a huge problem. Is that we can't just all say we're going to do one thing one way, because that's not what we want in our country anyway. The more we keep want every single freedom party. So for my personal thing, right, because it's popularity contest, the easiest way for this system.
Oh, we're certainly not trying to be popular.
No. I'm saying the government system is a popularity contest at best.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. They don't talk about the big issues and that. They just do whatever's popular. Right. So the two ways to control that is education and communication. Right. So all they've got to do is control the media and control the school, and the popularity contest continue. So, you know, I can say that, yes, we can go into someone could go in and we can get the right people in at the parties, and we can start attacking them to get back to the Constitution. We can have Heidi and that type of person, that type of team, personally attacking them and taking making them accountable for anybody that's trying to do treasonous things against that sort of thing while we're trying to clean out that possibility. And then we have other people that are working on crushing that fucking media that continues to give us the bullshit propaganda while we start to re-educate our kids through the system, right? That can't all just come from the government.
Generational, yeah.
You know. But what I'm saying is that I love the idea of being able to hold these people personally accountable for their bullshit, so it at least stops them hiding under the cover of the shit that they do, like the shit that they put me through. Some of the shit that they do, I'd love to be able to get that back to that level. I'd love to trust the system enough for the voting to say that we were going to vote our way back into this problem. But I also know that I want to be able to have a lot of people out there educating it. So I don't want everybody to have to always agree on the one way to attack this problem, because it's so big and it's been going on for so long that, you know, I think when we put ourselves into these pens of, do we agree on something?
I just threw it out there.
I know. I'm just saying, for me, it's a popularity contest. We have to stop that. To do that, you've got to get rid of the media and get rid of the school system. That's where I can make a difference by having an alternative type of media, doing as much as I can to get your information, your people's information, the real stuff out to as many people as possible by being some sort of goddamn alternate to the ABC, talking the same shit all day, every day. You know what I mean? So that's one way that I'm doing it, right? And then obviously we homeschool our child now, so that's a start. And she's not going to go through that system until we can fix it. You're attacking them from that legal front that's making them their knees knock, that should they stand in the way of people who are trying to get the system back into some sort of constitutional shape, that they are going to be they're going to be personally prosecuted, right? And that's going to be exactly the kind of thing you need to do that. So everything we talked about tonight is fantastic, and does not. I just don't think it needs to be
put in a box
barrier between us. I think it's the glue that binds us together, not fractured apart.
I was just trying to bring it. Yeah, I get it totally. Yep. I agree. I was just trying to bring it back to a point.
And it's been something that people have been approaching me for 25 years about, that we do this one thing, or how do we do it? And it's a multi-pronged thing. But first and foremost, we the people, which is what the Constitution granted, was the highest power. And that, in order for us, when we exercise our sovereignty, when we vote, that's an expression of our political communication through a couple of the sections of the Constitution, that we have to go up to that voting booth with some sort of knowledge about what they can do and what they can't do. And if anything, we use the court system to keep them on their toes.
Honest, yeah.
Like they keep us on our toes through the laws. It has to be a balance. And that's what good government is. Good government is not only the people we vote in, but the people that are voting those people in and keeping the pressure on those people to do their job.
I'm not crazy. I've got a dog pulling my hand.
And that's where it's at. It's as simple as that. And I think if we can do that in our own sort of way, but we all focus back to what the law says, for those of us,
we're not running from it, are we, Darryl?
No, but for those of us out here who are religious, the Bible was the first law book, And what did our Creator do? He laid out these laws for us, first and foremost, to keep within. And that's all we're doing. We're maintaining the system of law so that we can get on, we can do what we need to do.
You don't even have to be religious to understand that.
But then once we do, we've got a society that we can be proud to be part of rather than looking for a way out. Because that's what people are doing now. They're looking for a way out because our government system has put themselves above the people. You know, they flipped the whole situation. The Constitution was granted to put the people in charge of the government. They're our servants. And now they have they're looking at us now. We are their servants.
Oh, we're the leaders of the community. Yeah.
And this is what we've got to flip. We've got to turn this whole table back around to what the law provides. And they don't want that because this is the socialist system. The socialist system put the government as the one that dictates to all of the people. And that's not how it works. And we have to put in control. But the people have to do something to earn that. We have to keep the system honest. And we keep each other honest. And that's how it's going to work at the end of the day. And everyone will be able to rest at home. You know, the king, our land titles themselves, through the old English system, when you went home, it's called import. So
no one can come in. It's fee simple.
Yeah, your fee simple. So when you go home, you should be able to rest, truly rest your mind, rather than stress as to whether the king is going to come onto your property and harass you. And this is what the fee simple titles were all about. The king cannot enter until you give them the consent.
Permission to trespass.
And this is what the trespass laws are all about. So you should be able to come home and just chill out so that then you can go back out into the community when you've rested and you can perform whatever duty it is that you need to perform. And they're taking away our comfort at home. So they're saying, no, we need to know what it is. Oh, we saw you pick up a hammer and nail and drive it into a bit of wood. Where's your permission to do that? And this is what we've come to. We've lost our place to go and relax. We've lost our place to just chill out. And this is all part of this socialist system because they want us just to be a bunch of bloody robots doing their bidding for their bunch of the 1% who feel that they're above everyone else. And this is wrong. And this is what we're now confronting. And we need to deconstruct that paradigm and bring about our freedom. And that freedom is in the law. And we're all accountable to that law. Doesn't matter who you are. You know, we're all accountable. The law must prevail at the end of the day.
And I'd like to say I'm the luckiest person to have that mentor in my life for the last 6 years. Touche.
Cheers.
Yeah, and I've been saying this a bit lately, is that the issuance of a license doesn't grant you the ability to drive. The Magna Carta being written down didn't grant you the right to have natural law, nor did necessarily the Constitution's writing. They are the representation of the power that you had, the right that you had before we wrote them down, right? So we've got to get back to a point where we at least believe we've got the power, and then we understand what the writings said that we granted to them. But we don't even have the belief that we have the power yet.
No, that's a very good point. Now, in my study of constitutional law, I looked at one of the referendums that were held back in, I think it was 1915. They put a lot of questions to us. But when I looked into the yes and no arguments for that referendum, a profound sort of analogy came out, and they said, we need to look at the Constitution as a bag of bones. It's just a skeleton that's hanging in the closet. Now, in order for that skeleton to turn into a body, we need the people to become aware of what role they play in governance in order to instruct the Parliament to put a body on that skeleton.
Yep.
And then we have what's called a body of law. And that body of law will be something that we can all then relax, and with the knowledge that we have this solid foundation for which we can then go home and raise our families and teach them that foundation body of law is there to sustain their life and to allow them to do what they want to do through their life without hurting their neighbour. And that was brilliant. I thought that's how we should portray that Constitution. And it's something we build on it. It's not this fixed set of laws. It's something that as we evolve as a society, we then change that Constitution accordingly. But it's only when the majority of us are behind that and we all understand what it is that we need to do to change it. And that's, I think, the key. It really does. The law is where it's at.
We need to write that speech now and deliver it.
Yeah, you're 100%. I'm trying to do the same thing to my daughter, right? I say this is a law-free zone because we have taught you from the get-go. Now that you're at homeschool, we've taught you from the get-go what our morals and principles and standing are in this house, and you know right from wrong. But if I have to start writing it down and dictating to you a law is only useful, or rule is only useful if there's a police officer to police it. And if I have to be the police officer to make sure you continue to comply with that law, that's what we lacked with the Constitution, right? We wrote the Constitution down, but then we, the people, didn't police it because it only had any real use if we policed its application in that sense, right? Otherwise, it's just words on paper, and we've just turned our back on it.
Get down.
That's right. And in fact, the original court system in England, if you were a defendant in a court case, you could, and your peers, the people of your community were your judges, you could actually bring into that courtroom a challenge to the law that put you in there. And that jury could also review that law and throw it out. Or say, no, that law's applicable and we're now going to convict you and sentence you accordingly. But that was the power that our judicature actually had. And they've eroded that away over the...
I asked yesterday, are you allowed to hold them in perjury? This. None of that applies anymore, Darren.
Back in just 1 minute. You guys keep going. So I just got to duck out for a sec. Back teeth are floating.
You okay?
Yeah, back teeth are floating. That's all.
Oh.
Just got to figure out how to do it again.
Are we having a break?
Well, we could probably have a quick break, or we could think about wrapping it up. We are at 3.5 hours.
Yeah, let's wrap it up now.
One thing that people need to realise is that this is where policing starts. Policing starts in the community. We all of the police forces, although they are there, every single person in every part of Australia has the power of arrest. Okay, the power to, when you see a law being broken, power of arrest, and you can take that person either before a magistrate or deliver them to a police officer to have that law enforced. So, and most of the legislation provides for a protection. So even if that person is found innocent of the crime, you're not held accountable or anything. So, so there is, policing does start within the community. Okay, whether it's the Constitution. The Constitution's really a set of, it's the foundation of the structure of government. So it sets out how the Parliament operates, how the judiciary operates, and how the legislator operates. And so it's fundamentally how those three arms of government work, and then in the Constitution, in its structure, because before Federation, there were the colonies held the balance of every power. After Federation, the colonies gave up some of their powers so that the Constitution and the Commonwealth, could function. And there were fundamentally 39 lawmaking powers. Okay, they're found in Section 31 of the Constitution. There's a doctrine called the Enumerated Powers Doctrine, and the Commonwealth, it basically says that for the Commonwealth to validate one of its laws, it must point to a valid power in the Constitution so as to validate that particular law. Now, there's a court case from 1942 called the Uniform Taxation Case, where Justice Latham said to us that there are pretended laws in this country, and if there are pretended laws, okay, it is your right and your duty to ignore them. And there is, okay, there are many laws that the Commonwealth government write that they have no power to write. Yes. Okay. Fundamentally, when you go to a law, you'll see that it will have a section on the constitutionality of that law, and it will point to the head of power, okay, that validates that law. You know, for example, with taxation, it says section 51(2), subsection 2, the powers of taxation. Trade and commerce, section 51(1). Corporations, 51(20), and so on and so on. Okay? So you've got to be able to point to that valid head of power. Like when you look to, for example, the Royal Styles and Titles Act, there is no valid head of power for the creation of the Royal Styles and Titles Act for the Commonwealth to create a new title for the Queen. Okay, there is no head of power. We can look to a document called Minute 445, which is by one of the Attorney General's law officers named Lyndall, who actually provided a legal advice to the Commonwealth government.
Why are we talking
no head
about
of power
this?
Under the Constitution to create a title for the Queen. So that's not the only one. There's many other laws, okay? But this is the thing. Clause 5, okay, has qualifications and limitations in it. Clause 5 says, this Act and all the laws made by the Parliament of the Commonwealth under the Constitution shall be binding, okay? Now, what that means is it's the laws made under the Constitution, so within the enumerated powers, within the scope of powers found in Section 51, they are the powers that the Commonwealth can make the laws under. Okay, they are the ones, okay, that allow the Commonwealth to create those laws validly. Okay, any other law, okay, where there is no head of power found within the Constitution are not binding, okay, and therefore do not apply to you. It's as simple as that. So the Constitution, although it holds the basic fundamental lawmaking powers, it's a rule book for the three arms of government. It's not like there's only a few rights found in the Constitution, like in regards to religion and a few others. But fundamentally, you know, the rights that you're talking about, like that are found in the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights and things like that.
Who's your? Because I didn't say that. Darryl.
Sorry, Heidi.
I think he's just being general, Heidi. It's all right. Try continue, Darren.
No, hang on a minute. The people in your station, what were you talking about? We've just gone off topic. This Darryl just made the most profound statement. What are we talking about now? It's not Friday night entertainment.
Oh, sorry, did I interrupt Darryl? Darryl, continue.
This is no, he finished. This has become what we do.
Darren's just explaining a few little bits. He's just throwing his little thing in because we're kind of going to wrap this up because otherwise we're going to be here all night. My back teeth are well and truly floating.
Let's wrap it up.
This is going nowhere, Darren. Let's do it at home on the phone.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to take part and listen. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
No worries. Love to have you here, Jody. We'll have to get you back in another time. We'll do a bit of a one-on-one sort of a thing.
Because it's Friday night. I'm like sitting here going,
Yeah, it was great to meet everyone, especially you, Heidi Ward.
Yes, Darren. All right.
Mrs. Ward. Mrs. Ward.
It's like Mrs. Ward.
Mrs.
Can't
Ward,
contract.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. So, yeah, we obviously
There are just a quick little couple of questions I want to have a get to because people have been patiently waiting for them. One of them was from Martin. He wants to know about your piano, Darryl. Is that a W. Haller Berlin piano?
in the background there. Yeah, right.
It's a Blunther. It's a German grand upright. So
Can you play it, Darryl?
Yeah, of course I can. But
Hey.
it's
Oh,
a
you play piano,
it's a grand.
That's why they call him Fingers O'Brien.
Darryl, you can play grand piano.
Yeah.
All right,
I
I've got a
learned.
marketing exercise for you fucking next week. Didn't.
It's certainly a lot nicer than my $80 Aldi fucking MIDI controller over there.
No, I've got a job for you next week, Darryl. I do a female dear. Hooray! I drop a golden sun. Me, a name I called myself.
I do want to acknowledge Anne Rodriguez's comment from earlier, though. You have no power over me. I mean, that is the ultimate ending to that movie.
Just ignore it.
Brilliant line there that people I think should definitely keep considering is that yes, don't let them have power over you.
Are we collectively doing the trolls? I reckon Jody's going to have a bit of a go at this. So this is cool. This is actually a really good thing because that's never been done on a social media, that a group of people can actually reassess the trolls and discuss this. Perfect. We've found a new niche in the market. Jody, I think, is going to love this bit.
Okay. Anyway, so look, one person here is just a quick, straight up. We don't need a life story answer. We'll go around the table. We'll start with Darryl just because you're in the top left there. If you had to choose, you got no other option. It's Labor or Liberal. Which one is it going to be?
Oh, well, then it'd have to be. I'd probably abstain from voting and cop the fine.
Abstain. Nothing to me.
Yep, Heidi agrees. Jody, what do you reckon, mate? Labor or Liberal if you had to choose?
I'd swim to another country before I'd vote for either of those dickheads.
Darren?
I can't help you with the response there because I'm self-governing.
Yeah. I think I'm inclined to agree. I really don't want anyone. I think if I was at absolute gunpoint and it was at penalty of death, I'm like, I really fucking hate Labor. All right, liberal, not by a landslide, but by a bee's dick. Clark asked Jody, was it internal or border fence? Internal fence. There you go. Simple, straightforward ones. How much time do you think we have left on the clock before they start coming at us hard? We'll start with Darryl. How you going, mate?
I think they're coming at us hard right now. So the clock's.
I'd say it's already been done.
Yeah,
go back and watch Cooker 101 from yesterday, and you'll understand just how hard they're coming from us without even looking at it from a constitutional point of view. You want a list of things that they're coming at us with? Go and watch that video because I'm not as green as I am.
Jody's right. Jody's 100% right. I back Jody. Next question.
It started coming hard on September the 1st, September the 11th,
My father
2001.
was
Yep.
I know what
2001, you reckon, when the towers come down?
Yep,
I
that's
know
what
exactly what happened. My father was
That's
part
when
of
we're
it.
all labeled
Next
terrorists.
question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Next
inclined to agree. It was actually amazing how many people were, but we've got to let them pass these fucking laws that take all our rights away. They've got to do something. I'm like, but do you realize they could just turn around one day and say, we don't like you. You're now a terrorist. Let's detain you without fucking rhyme or reason. Oh, but they've got to do something. Okay.
Oh, there's a lot more to that.
But anyway, that's
Next
definitely
question.
a great point. Personally, I think 2030 game's over. That's kind of where I'm thinking because Agenda 2030. If you enjoyed Agenda 2021, as we just seen happen with the,
I think they're right on
the
plan.
scenario, wait for Agenda 2030.
Jody, they're ready to rock and roll. Next
What's
question.
Oh yeah, they're coming at us. I reckon they can still come harder though.
Oh, look, the only thing that makes it dangerous for guys and girls like yourselves is that everybody that keeps saying that we're standing behind you. I don't need people to stand behind me. I need people to stand beside us.
Yes.
Right? So that when someone in the line gets shot, that person might drop out for a small while to recover, but the arms link back up and keep moving forward, right?
Pretty sure Mackay Mercury reiterated that we said that Peter McDougall didn't get charged with manslaughter. Jessica Hambry didn't get charged with murder. I don't know who the person that was associated there, but well, I do. Funny same person. That's me.
So,
Rex here, Darren. So if the minor parties don't get in this time, we're all doomed. I think we're going back to one of your earlier statements that this was the last election that we probably got to have a real free one without the two major parties intervening. I believe that's the comment he's referring to.
I think they're going to get in anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't look at the glass being half empty. I look at it being half full, and I look at the fact that the statistics have shown over the last two elections that we've had about a 15 to 17% increase, or should I say decrease, in people voting for the two major parties. So I think that's what we need to rely on instead of sitting around going, "Oh, we're doomed." Yeah, I don't like to look at that. I like to look at where it's going to go. Okay, look at the statistics. This is where it's going to go. Get out there and enroll other people in it.
And definitely for those who are somewhat still new to the game, there's some of us have been, hoping for a better world for a fucking long time. And I think this is like, wow, the most opportune things have looked in a long time. I don't see that we're in a world of hurt, although I'm thinking, okay, 2030, they're going to turn the tap a little bit harder. That's for sure. But there's still 5 years for us to keep doing our thing. And if everybody stops just watching and does the man in the mirror trick as we talk, what can you do?
5 years?
Well, it's 2025, Agenda 2030.
So that
Agenda 2030 is their next step. So, they're obviously pushing to make sure by 2030 they want X amount of things done. I don't think they're going to get it because they didn't get it in 21 either. They're still behind schedule because there is a lot of resistance.
Batty.
Yeah, mate.
They didn't get it in 1984. Okay, that was the plan. 1984. Okay, that was the Fabians. That was the Fabians. Okay.
Yep.
So it never happened in 1984, and they are struggling. You know why? You can't take over the world. Many have tried in the past, but now we've got groups of these people that have banded together.
I don't want to be part of this. I'm not entering into this. I just don't want to be part of this.
No, it's okay. Well, if you want to call it a night, you're more than welcome. I was just racking up the last couple of questions.
Jody,
it's lovely to see you, Heidi.
You speak the truth.
Jody,
Darryl,
and Fingers O'Brien.
No worries.
You all.
I adore the world that there's no point talking about anything further here. I'm tired.
It's all right. Good night, Heidi. You have a good one.
Ciao, Mark.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm going to slip into bed. My friends are up visiting, and they are leaving early in the morning. So thank you very much.
So it's a
double.
Right. Thank you, coming on, Jody. We'll have you on again soon, mate.
This new
thank you.
thing.
I'll exit it for you. Okay. You have a good one, Heidi. See you later.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Darryl, for coming on. Thanks, Darren, for coming on and helping us out. It's always a pleasure to have you guys on. And I'm from what I can see, the majority of the people have really enjoyed this one. So thanks heaps, guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Stay positive because you've got to realize that you can be part of the solution. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't be pessimistic. Enroll everyone. Okay.
Right.
That's it. Sorry, go ahead, Darryl.
That's why we do what we do, mate.
Exactly.
And you're a crucial part of that, Batty.
Exactly.
Thank
And
you
if you can
very
see
much.
through the illusion, you're part of the solution.
Hell yeah. And this is the platform for all those people who can do that, for all the people who have stepped up, you know, just like Darren, Darryl, Heidi, Jody, all the other people, Michael, you know, Robin, so many people who are, you know, out there at the moment. I could cap names off forever, but at the end of the day, wouldn't you want to be one of those names? Don't you want to jump on here in the North Queensland Freedom Network and share your amazing success about how you would manage to achieve something, no matter how small it was? So, you know, have a good think about that as we move through the Easter weekend, you know, because what a great time to think about these things, really. I mean, you're not getting nailed to a cross. How far do you want to go? Do you want to get yourself nailed to a cross to die for your convictions? How far are you willing to go? How much does this mean to you? That's the $1 million question, you know.
Exactly.
And you know, I had a bit of a time trying to pick the art for this. You know, I was banging away at AI, trying to get it to define what I was trying to achieve here. And we might just end on a couple of these little pictures because there's a few of them that come up. But I really wanted to sort of capture the pain, you know, of the scenario and the consequences of letting a good person die because you didn't stand up back then. Now we've got the opportunity. Lots of people are standing up. Are you going to support them? Are you going to help them carry the cross? Or are you just going to stand there and watch it happen? Those are the kind of things that go through my mind, you know. And these are the kind of images that AI tried to grab from what I was describing.
Yes.
Images like that.
Yes.
You know, it's not a happy story. It's like in some ways, I think the Bible is almost like the first horror story, you know, but it's just such a real one.
It is.
You know? Oh, hang on, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Hang on, let's do this the right way this time. So, you know, another nasty one. You know, I'm trying to grab the Satan laughing as they've been victorious as the world kind of burns, you know, and the sun sets in the background. You know, because it's like somehow they got Jesus laughing. You know, but again, perhaps a moment of madness. You know, it's an interesting picture into itself when you look at that. You know, picture's worth 1,000 words. And then there's the zombie Jesus element, you know, which is the jovial element. I used to have this really cool Machine Head T-shirt with a sort of zombie-looking Jesus, you know, and I think the words that went along with it, and Jesus wept, you know. Let Freedom Ring with the Shotgun Blast was another one that came from that particular album. You know, again, another one, you know, Satan's winning, standing around, man standing alone, dying for what he believes in. How far are you willing to go? You're going to let the city burn as well? Like, again, I think this is the one I actually ended up choosing. I thought this one really said it the most. You know, it's almost like a pendulum swinging from the hand there. You know, little demon minions. The world's burning behind there, and we all just stood there and watched 2,000 years ago. We're going to let it happen again.
They chose the murderer.
Mm.
Rome gave them the choice. You choose the murderer, or you choose to release the murderer, or you release this innocent man. And they chose to release the murderer. And who put him there?
Wow, what was it? Was it Judas, or was it, you know, Mel Gibson's kind of put the point of the finger at the Jews, and Pontius Pilate still washing his hands, according to Megadeth.
It was the Pharisees.
Mm.
It was the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are the ones who are currently, and it's the Pharisees' laws, which are what's called the Talmud. Those laws and the people that stand by the Talmud are the ones in control of Israel at the moment.
Mm.
And I put out a video today on the Facebook, and it blew me away. It blew me away. Every Easter, and I think it's going to happen our tomorrow, but their Good Friday, there is this area where Christ was actually rested, where they put his body. And there's this, you can go into this room and with any sort of candle, and it will light up. It will just light up for this specified amount of time. And this video, people were videoing this. There are all these people in this room. They're all holding these candles with this really strange flame. And people were holding the flame up to their beards and their faces and paper. They were holding paper over this flame. And nothing was happening. It was this miracle flame, and it appears once a year at this one spot. It's fascinating. And if you weren't watching it, you're thinking, hang on, is this CGI? No. And it goes back, and then they do a bit of a history on it. And they show you where this flame comes in and settles. And people go in there, and it doesn't matter. And if you're a strong believer in Christ, that whatever you hold up as a candle, and it will just light up. And people have lit a flame with a normal candle, and they'd hold a piece of paper, and the flame from the holy flame, and it would just leave a slight scorch mark in the paper, where the normal flame, of course, it burns through a hole through it. And you go, wow, unexplainable. But it sort of says something, doesn't it? There's this other power that's out there that's like, wow, that blew me away. Have a check it out. It's on my face. I put it up on my Facebook post.
I sent you a friend request on Facebook about 3 years ago, and I checked today, and you still haven't accepted it. So when you accept that, I'll have a look.
Yeah. Well, mate, I'll go through it, and I'll accept you as soon as I find you.
Cool. I might see if there's a way to resend it, ask. But anyway, I think we should probably leave it about there. You know, I think most people know I'm not a religious person, but I do love the stories, and you know, I don't specifically doubt the idea of somebody like Jesus existing. I do doubt churches and organized religions, though. You know, I think, you know, there's a hell of a lot more on heaven and earth, in the heavens and on earth, than we mere mortals can sort of put our minds to. And I'm certainly not going to be the one to go out there and say, it's this, it's that, I've got all the fucking answers. No, I'm more open ears and open eyes and open heart, and we'll see what it is, you know. But you know, I think particularly on the Easter thing for me, a lot of people keep saying, oh, Jesus died for our sins. And all I see is one man standing on a cross and a whole bunch of people did fuck all to help him. I kind of felt a bit more like he died because of them. But that's something we can change.
Absolutely.
We don't have to let this shit happen again.
That's right.
So on that nice happy note, I'd like to finally end this with I hope that Michael makes a wonderful recovery and is very safe in surgery tomorrow. Best wishes to your brother if you're watching. If not, still the best wishes are there nonetheless. So thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for coming on who participated. Don't forget to think about becoming a Patreon and helping us support this stuff, because yeah, it does cost time and money, and my blood is getting one hell of a stretch out. I might need to get it replaced one day. NQ Freedom Network at protonmail.com. If you've got a wonderful success story, you've done awesome shit and you want to tell the world about it, well, this is the place to be. I've worked in the mainstream media. I can tell you they're not going to help you. So you better contact me, because it's the best thing we can do here, particularly here in North Queensland. And, you know, if you don't tell other people what amazing things you do, how can we all learn? It's all about sharing them experiences. Other than that, don't forget, check the description. if you can't find it in the description, use that email to get to me. There's the free 7-day trial of the Gaia network, and if you do subscribe, I get a little bit of something from it. Hey, look, I look at it too because, well, the more knowledge the better. Knowledge is power, isn't it? So I think there's some very interesting things in there, particularly one that comes to mind on a day such as this, that there was the idea that perhaps the Bible, the Roman rendition in particular, wasn't actually written, by those who you think it is. It's an interesting idea, much in the same way that did Shakespeare really write Shakespeare's works? But, they're just questions and they're worth looking at, test your faith, perhaps, And there's a $10 free Bitcoin thing. Once you transfer, a couple of bucks, you get $10 free. I get $10 free. It's a win-win situation. Why wouldn't you want to give it a go? Bitcoin's going through the roof. It always has. I wish I had bought it several years ago when $10 was about all it cost for a Bitcoin. But, waited. Now it's $146,000 or some shit, or I'm not even sure how much it is. It's a ridiculous amount of money. But, it's only going up. What do you got to lose? Sorry?
134.
134. It dropped a bit. All right, fair enough. Up and down. That's the nature of stocks, but it's truth. There's some pretty good coin in there anyway. But anyway, thanks heaps, guys.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
It's been a pleasure, mate.
Always. Take it easy, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Definitely. Happy Easter, however you choose to spend it.